Everybody, we'll be starting momentarily here.
We are good to go whenever you're ready, President Jackson.
Okay, thank you. So I call a meeting of October 25th to order. It is 6:04 for our second meeting of the month of October. We're returning back from closed session now. And I just want to say we have no reportable action from closed session to share. I want to welcome everybody to this meeting. We had a big storm and we were open for school today with all of our students. And I just want to thank all the teachers and classified staff who made that happen. And I know all the students were just thrilled to be back in school today. I also want to say I was in a meeting today with the county public health, Dr. Lisa Santora, and want to thank her again on behalf of the whole board and the school district for all the work that county public health is doing to keep us well and minimize the COVID transmission. Lowest it's what we need to be able to have our kids in school. And we have masks as the front line and vaccines as the front line. I just thank everybody for their support, for the protection that's made the difference. So with that, I will get started on the agenda. We have a very exciting agenda with talking, I think what's really important about capital improvements, and look forward to hearing that, but a number of other important items. So we'll start with a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, moved by trustee Tuatagaloa and seconded by trustee Daly to approve the agenda. Trustee Palma.
Aye.
Trustee, I'm sorry, Lucia Martel Dow.
Aye.
Trustee Daly.
Aye.
And Vice President Tuatagaloa.
Aye.
That motion passes and we have an agenda for the evening. Our first item up is just so wonderful to see a presentation from Laurel Dell Elementary School. And I'll see if our superintendent has an introduction to make.
Good evening, everybody. So yes, I'd like to introduce Pepe Gonzalez. Pepe is one of our excellent principals. Stephanie Close and I were just out there today. Pepe is probably one of our best community activists. He's always pushing for equity and important things at his school. He's done an amazing job actually this year handling some very difficult behavior issues on a daily basis in a way that I could never even possibly imagine. So just a great positive aspect, has a great rapport with kids that are out there, and really happy to have Pepe as one of our veteran principals in the district now. Pepe, take it away.
Well, thanks, Jim. It's always good to see you in person and on campus. So you can see what we do out here, and it's been a year. I don't think that we can lie to say that this year has gone off without a hitch, but I think that we have a phenomenal community, a teaching staff, and it's great to have the team around us to get to where we are today. So I guess I'll just start with a little bit about myself. And I'll wait for Morena.
It's coming.
It's coming. Awesome. And I gotta say, it was good to see Bob this morning check up on our school because that weather was a little extreme this weekend, obviously, and we didn't fall apart. We actually weathered the storm with only one leak in our brand new school. So Linda, I know you said talking capital facilities. I think it's been phenomenal to have a brand new facility where everything is working thus far. All right, so Morena, la próxima, por favor. I actually had to go back and count how many years I was here since this presentation got going here, and it's my 12th year. And man, it doesn't feel like 12 years, but it feels like 12 years sometimes. I started as a teacher at Venetia Valley in the dual language program, so it's great to see that program get some energy back into it. I guess that was last week, and revitalized. It's going to be an amazing thing for our community to really have that to be proud of. So I started as a teacher in the dual language program, became the VP and the principal at Benicia Valley. And then that lovely, amazing school called Short School opened up and closed back up. I got to be a part of both the opening and the closing. I learned a lot. We had the 3 and 4 year old early intervention program at Short School with students at 3 and 4 years old diagnosed with special needs. But it was also when we had our first TK classes in the district at Short School. So a lot of things coming full circle for me here. And then now just at Laurel Dell. And what's been really exciting about Laurel Dell is with the community here. I guess it was 7 years ago, starting to design the school, trying to figure out what we needed physically in that capital facilities capacity to see what it was that we're going to design on our little corner here at Eva, Siebel, and Woodland Avenue. You know, obviously, as I've been here now, I got these two kiddos here who are proud lions like their dad, and I think that's the part that's really inspiring, motivating, and if I could say this work is personal, it really is. I had to put this picture in here because Nico started in kindergarten with us, and I couldn't be prouder to be their dad at this school. And all the things that we do here is because we want not only a good experience for my own kids, but every other kid that's at this school. So we really do strive for that. And I am lucky to have this community and the staff to make this all happen. Gracias, Morena. So I'll start with just giving some demographics about what our community looks like. We're at 278 students, which is pretty darn close to being at full capacity. Every one of our 12 classrooms is full. We do have 2 classes every grade level, except for 3rd grade this year. When we moved to the annex for the construction, we were only able to take 1 class at a time. Fortunately, when the Short School transition happened, we were able to absorb a lot of those students. So right now, 3rd graders are singleton, which allows us to have TK here. So we are 2 years out from being at full capacity if 2 classes are at every grade level. 90% of our students report to being Hispanic, 6.5 is white, 1% Asian. So that demographic has definitely shifted in the 12 years I've been here. I think we've seen this reflection district-wide. So it's something that we are cognizant of. Our language learners have also increased, and our free and reduced numbers have also increased. So definitely some shifts demographically of who we are as a student body. So this is just some global things. I found these 2 old pictures because it's the same front of the school, but way different pictures there, but kind of where we've been and where we're going and some of the things that we're excited about. So this is the first kindergarten class to start here. Pre-COVID, that class started at the annex, came over here January and February, and then we kicked them all out and said, go home and be online for a while. So it's pretty exciting that this is the first class that we're actually starting from kindergarten, hopefully all the way through 5th grade on our new facility. One thing that we're being really explicit and clear about is as we have 2 classes per grade level, really focusing on having at least one of those grade level partners being bilingual. I'll talk a little bit more about student conferences that we had last week, but when we do a presentation for back to school night, when we do a presentation for open house, any kind of literacy events, having one of the grade level partners be bilingual allows for a deeper connection to our families. I cannot just, like, our instructional coach and intervention specialist is one of the best around. I am fortunate to have Maggie Stevens, Dr. Stevens, here at Laurel Dell. She is just a rock star. And she was one of the people that originally, when we got pretty small, when we moved over to the annex, started doing some of the intervention work and the coaching work. And it was unique to Laurel Dell because we were co-funding with site dollars and district dollars. So she kind of had her district coach hat and her site intervention hat. But what it's really proving is that work in tandem gets all of our tiers of support organized, structured, and we'll learn more about our MTSS model here in a bit too. We started piloting this fee-based LEAP program, which started off with the bang, and then the state said, sorry, you can't charge kids to be in after-school programs, it's all free. So we've had a little bit of a snafu, but the goal and the intention behind our after-school program is to get more students into the program, to bring a more enriching opportunities for our students, because kids need a space after school to have a snack, have some recess, do some homework time, have some kind of, either it's PE, it's dance, it's music, bring something that's going to excite them to be here, not just tell them to be at school for a long time, because parents are working hard. So with all those goals in place, we started this fee-based program. We selected a fee model that we thought was affordable and doable for our families. We had like 70% deposit rate back in the spring. We've had to taper that off because of the latest language from the state. But I do feel that this is a great opportunity to be able to bring families together, to keep them after school, and to bring more to our students and to grow it. In true transparency, we are having problems staffing this program. I think that this is just a trend at this price point, that it's really challenging to get people to commit to 3 or 4 hours a day in the afternoon for this price point. Our enrichment opportunities. This is something that we are very proud of here at Laurel Dell, because our students are exposed to amazing work by Youth and Arts, a local nonprofit here that I believe is at 5 or 6 of our schools now. Dance, art, music, we're still in partnership with Heads Up a little bit, but we're doing it through Youth and Arts. PE, we're still working with the Academy of Athletics. So our students are getting a really well-balanced enrichment opportunity. And so the students benefit from that, but our teachers also benefit from that, because it's a 35, 45-minute block of time where they're with their class, but they're not directly instructing them. So it's twofold. And people used to always say like, oh, we can't afford these programs, or we can't afford them. So through grants, through donations, through the support of our community, we're able to offer the same experience here at a Title I school than other schools all throughout Marin. And I think that's something that we need to stand behind, because just because we're Title I shouldn't limit our students' access to these awesome programs. And then the last thing is just our community is pretty amazing. I mean, if you think about the resilience of moving off of this campus over to the annex, back into the new space, going through COVID, our staff and our community, they are just here with us. We ask, and they are just amazing. That's a lot of moves in a short period of time. That's a lot of moving parts. And we're still here, very proud of what we've done. So we have 3 major goals, and they all follow the same goals that the district has put out there. You guys are familiar with the multiple tier children's support, focusing on language learners and culturally relevant teaching. So our first goal that we have here is Morena. There it is. And student achievement obviously is our goal. And the one goal that we're really focused on this year is 1 year's growth on the Foneston Pinal FMP assessment, and a specific focus on language learners, which is 2/3 of our demographic. Now, traditionally, we're able to use LPAC and SBAC and reading inventories. Because of the void with the COVID distance learning and the lack of assessments, it's not as consistent as we'd like. We don't have a year-to-year trackable on some of those larger assessments, which are more global. So we're really focusing on our FMP, our reading, and using the reading inventory to match it up 2nd through 5th grade. So Illuminate is where we're tracking this data, and we're actually, Jim and Stephanie got to see our students taking the 2nd grade math test today. And it's a pretty rigorous test. And as we were meeting, the teacher actually instantly walked in and said, look at the results, here it is. And you can see trends, you can see what things she needs to reteach, what students need certain learnings again. So it's a pretty awesome model that we're getting those immediate results in a teacher-friendly and a student-friendly way to report back to them. So hopefully this leads right into our second goal, is if we're collecting all this data and we have all these assessments, that then we're able to target the intervention and the support students need to be able to really meet them where they are and take them further and further. So this week we started our before school. So with parent conferences last week, we were able to report to the families, your student is here, they're supposed to be here. One thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a before school intervention or an after school intervention. So these are services that we're able to offer through our title dollars to pay teachers additional time, because we know that during the school day, there is only so much time. There's only so many minutes in that day. So, the families work with us, we work with them, and we get kids here. We're also proposing a February and an April break, little kind of boot camp. We've done these in the past, and they've been really successful, because we know that when schools close, kids don't necessarily always end up in supportive or awesome home environments. Sometimes they're just home with somebody watching them, but there's no actual vacations and ski trips to Aspen in February. So our students can come here. They get some awesome academic support. They gain some academic support. Our teachers are compensated for it, and we're able to really increase that student achievement. And I think the final thing they hear that's important, this is a learning over to, one last thing, is that credentialed teachers are by far the best way that we've seen results out of our students. We've tried different models, but the teachers know their students, they know where they are and they need to go. So it's a much easier lift for them to be specific and targeted with the intervention. So that's something that we are really trying to drive. We love having our instructional assistants and other classified support staff, but when it comes to the tier 2s, the majority of that work is happening with our credentialed teachers. And finally, our community engagement. We have not had parents on campus until last week when we opened up our gates and let families come in and meet with our teachers in person for the first time. And just alone having parents on campus kind of brought that buzz back. And some of our parents, even from our second grade and down, they hadn't stepped foot on the new campus. They'd never been inside the gates. So having our parents here is going to be something that hopefully will get more community involvement. One of the way that we're engaging is I have not done a paper newsletter in a really long time. I think since COVID started. And because we all know, and I think this is a learning as a parent, the Friday folder would come home and you'd start fumbling through it and like, okay, you're going to save this. You don't want that one. And then like 2-3 days later, you're trying to find those pieces of paper. What we're seeing is that these bilingual videos that we are communicating with our families, everybody has a smartphone. Everybody can watch it. They can rewind. They can fast forward. They're pretty easy to access again online. Parent Square has proven to be a pretty successful tool. We're still pushing it constantly, but it's just a different way to communicate with our families in their language. And I got to give props to Jim and Ms. Nunes, who last Friday in the Friday Focus, or maybe 2 Fridays ago, it was a fully in Spanish message to our families. And that just proves so differently. Instead of having to read the subtitles or have the translation feature, you actually hear it directly in the language. And those connections are just something that we need to continue to support our families with. This Wednesday, we're going to have our first Charla or our CLAC meeting on campus. We're flirting with this idea of the hybrid model, similar to events where you have a camera and you can, be live streaming in. So you might not be present physically, but you can still get the information. And we have the technology set up now because, COVID taught us that we can do this now and live stream things and have people in person. So we also know that having people in person is something different that we want to get back to. So we're going to, bring these hybrid events back to our campus. And tomorrow or Wednesday, we have our first Charla CLAC meeting. So we'll see how that goes. And then leadership opportunities for our families. Our families tend to just, do what we're asking of them, but they never really kind of come out and say, hey, can I support you with this? Or I'm really good at this. And I think we need to get that parent voice and our student voice. I was reminded earlier that our parent and student voice is something critical to our school community, and we need to continue to elevate that. And then the last goal I put in here too is the California Bilingual Education Conference. Is an amazing conference that we've been fortunate to go to. The last, I don't know how many years before COVID. It's once in Southern California, once in Northern California. And it's not just about bilingual education. It's about language learners as a whole. And it's a great opportunity that we can learn from other educators up and down the state and nationally. And this year I'm setting a goal. I'm going to try to bring a couple of families, parents, our key leaders to the conference because it's in the city and they have different workshops for families to attend. So a couple of families, a couple teachers, and I think it'll be a good way to build those leadership opportunities for our community here. So that's enough about Laurel Dell. Hopefully you guys have some questions for me. And again, it's been a good year. I'm fortunate to be with this amazing team. And thank you to Jim and any of you who want to come by and visit. We are allowed to have you here. We'll check your vaccine card at the door, but come on down.
Thank you so much, Pepe Gonzalez. That is fabulous. And I'm just love to hear your enthusiasm about the school and seeing the doors opening up and hearing about that. How exciting that must be. So I'll see if any trustees have questions, including the student trustees or comments. Trustee Daly.
Thank you so much, Pepe, for the presentation. It's such a special school, and it was really lovely to be able to visit last spring and see you guys back on campus and seeing all the kids in the classrooms. My question is about, I'd love to hear more about the LEAP program and the pilot you were trying to do for fee-based. I think I just want to understand a little bit more about the issues with it. Is it because some students were eligible for free after school and some would have paid a fee? Can you explain a little bit more about what wasn't allowable? Because I do really think, and the board has expressed in the past, that we want to make sure that there are after school opportunities for all students. And if we can expand it in any way, that's something we really would like to do. So I know I would not be able to work if my son was not in an after school program. So anyway, would love to hear a little bit more about what specifically happened and if there are things that we need to take to Sacramento to try to fix in order to expand after school. Thanks.
No, thank you for the question. So I think that we were restricted to the process as to how to get students in. We were restricted to certain grade levels. And I think most of the schools that have LEAP programs, it's fun. We contract out with BACR as our provider for the services, and the money is coming from the state. So it had to be title kids that needed the additional support with a teacher recommendation. We kept hearing that more kids needed that support. We saw it during COVID when families were home. In the learning hubs, we opened up the learning hubs. So the thinking was that, yes, we need kids here, but we also want to be able to increase the other kids who don't necessarily meet that criteria, or families that want a place to go for their kids that will offer some sports, some music, some dance, and other enrichment opportunities instead of having to go to other sites. And this is back from my Venetia Valley days and learning about other programs at other of our campuses that have the outside contractors. You basically create two models. You create a model for the free and reduced kids, and then the families that can pay for it. And we wanted to not create that community here. We wanted to have everybody be inclusive in one model. So that was a part of the thinking, that everybody's invited and that we're able to continue to have the students who qualify in the program and then grow it for other students. But with the growing it will then benefit the other students by offering those enrichment opportunities. So I guess in simple, it's the rich taxing to be able to benefit everybody. It's not that simple, obviously, but that was the thinking, that we'd be able to grow our program by at least one additional teacher in year one, so that kindergarten through fifth grade would be able to offer the model. The other thinking around that was we would never open this to kindergartners previous to this year. I think last year we actually piloted it for siblings of kindergartners, because families would say, well, how's my fourth grader, but my kindergartner can't be? And when we were doing the 1:30 release for kindergartners instead of the full day, families would have to come at 1:30, pick up their kindergartner. Now, fortunately, we're all in full day, so it's changed that. But it was those dynamics where like one kid's allowed, but the other isn't. So removing some of those barriers and being clear that, yes, you're all allowed here. So that was some of the thinking. And, obviously, yes, funding is an issue for one. And then finding the people is kind of becoming a larger issue this year, where people are starting and going and coming. So we're all over, but we have an amazing LEAP coordinator here, Anita, who's been with us 5 or 6 years. She's actually just got promoted to be the district oversight person. So I'm excited that you guys might actually get to see her at this level at the board meeting, presenting about all the programs in the district. But yeah, it was creating parity, and everybody's welcome in our program.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Martel Dow, is that a hand going up?
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions. I actually was wondering kind of the same things as Trustee Daly. So I just wanted to say congratulations, since we went to this wonderful school and did the visit, and I'm so glad you get to enjoy the new campus and that kids and teachers like it. And just want to congratulate you on all the work that you are doing, Pepe. I know it's rough getting everybody back on campus, and it's difficult sometimes to navigate so many of the COVID challenges, including transition to, again, in-person full-time. So anyway, I just wanted to just really send you my good thoughts and tell you that we really like what you're doing over there. Thank you.
Gracias, Lucia.
Trustee Palma, I know that you this is a special school for you.
Oh, yes. And so is Mr. Gonzalez as a principal, okay? Mr. Gonzalez, I am really pleased with everything that you have done in the past and what you are doing now for Laureldale. I really like your idea and vision of planning to increase student achievement, because that is something that our children need. And I heard you mention boot camps in the month of February when the children are off. And I'm just wondering if that could be an ongoing thing, or are we going back to funding and personnel?
I mean, yeah, I mean, even finding the staff sometimes is difficult because teachers, it's a break. So it's time to be off because it's a grueling job. But I think it goes to everything. But I think that some students really need that extra consistency and benefit from it. Some kids don't, obviously. And we see their achievement be at the levels they are with or without additional support. So it's all the above. I think that the kids that need more should get more, and we need to be creative about how we try to do that.
Any other comments from, I'm going to see if there's any public comments on Laurel Dell's the presentation about Laurel Dell, but first finished getting comments from student trustees, or I don't see any other hands going up. So the way we take our public comment here is you would raise your hand as a participant, using the icons at the bottom of the screen or wherever they're placed on your device. And if you raise your hand, our communications person will recognize you. And I'm not seeing that there is anybody, is there?
Seeing none.
Okay, so well, thank you, Principal Gonzalez. Fabulous presentation. Stick around, you won't believe what's next. 10,000 Degrees is going to present.
I know. I saw Rondell and Tracy in the hopper there, so they're going to knock it out of the park. So thank you guys so much, and please come down to Laurel Dell anytime.
Okay. I'm just really excited to welcome 10,000 Degrees to here. Pepe and I were on the board together for a number of years. I served on the board for 9 years for 10,000 Degrees, was a mentor for 15. And I know, Rondell, you have been just a real pivotal role in seeing the organization grow. But so we're looking forward to the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent for an introduction at this point.
Thanks so much, President Jackson. So yeah, we are really lucky to be partners with 10,000 Degrees. They've been an amazing partner actually to a lot of the school districts in Marin, and now they are expanding outside of Marin. Work a lot with them and they use students, as you mentioned, to support other students, have probably the best fundraiser in the whole area every year, rake in tons of bucks, which is great. They support our students in summer camps and really helping students to succeed. And they give scholarships. They help our students fill out the FAFSA. I won't take all of Rondell's thunder, but Rondell's been a great partner also. So I'd like to turn it over to Rondell Gibson to tell some of our new board members a little bit more about 10,000 Degrees.
Hello, sorry about that. I had to make sure the door was open for a moment. But anyway, thank you for the introduction. It's been amazing partnering with San Francisco City Schools, as well as it's been fun working with all of our students and partners to get the job done. But just to give you a brief background about myself, my name is Rondell Gibson. I'm an alum of 10,000 Degrees. So I'm similar to Pepe. We both have gone through the organization, received support. And I've been here for about 11 years with the organization. So it's been a joyful ride. And then how would you like to proceed with who is changing slides?
That will be, if you just want to let me know if I don't get it right, just indicate.
Awesome, thank you. As you see here, our mission is to achieve educational equity and to support students from low-income backgrounds to and through college to positively impact their communities. And this is something that we really strive to do to make sure that every student that we come in contact with has the ability to reach their educational goals and then come back and change any community that they go into. So we really are serious about this. All the work that we do, as Jim has spoken about, that we help with after school programs. We've been in supporting students in camps, as well as tutoring and college applications inside of school, outside of schools, and in various other spaces, whether it be virtual or at a library. So let's continue. Great. And we envision a world where all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic background, will have the full range of educational opportunities to support and resources to realize their full potential. So like I was saying earlier, we truly believe this. I think even the way that we exercise this is even hiring individuals who believe in this mission. We do a huge onboarding process to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I think that's it shows in our work. So let's continue. Great. Believing in empowering or how we connect. So there's a few things that I'm going to point out here, who we serve, what we do, and how do we do it. And who we serve is the students of low income backgrounds. This tends to be our first generation students. And we work with our school partners as well as CBOs to find the right student and the students that fit the background that we need, our eligibility requirements. Then how do we do this? Or actually, I'll go back a little bit. So I'm not going to harp too much on the who we serve because another slide is going to show exactly who our students are, but I just wanted you to see the numbers here on the left side of who we serve. And then what we do is a lot of comprehensive support to get students to and through college. And we do this in various ways with various workshops. This is just a number of the ones that we have. As you see, college and financial aid, to scholarships, support, management, and then career and graduate education and support. And then how do we do this? So we do this first. I'd like to point out that we hire individuals who come from San Rafael City Schools and the other districts throughout the county to make sure that students are working with people who are pretty much the same as them, or similar backgrounds and from their community, so they have a better chance of connecting and completing the work. We really, really believe in this model and believe in that. And majority of our fellows, actually, which you'll see in a later slide, are alums and come from our surrounding counties that we serve. So let's continue. Great. This is one of our data slides. I'm not going to go into detail about all this, but I think it's really important to show this. One of the things I like to show is how much scholarship support that we provide out. And if you see here down on the left, just $4 million that we gave out just last year in scholarship awards. And this is huge. All of our scholarships support local students. So we don't we're not a national scholarship organization. So we are, less competitive than those national ones. And another thing I like to point out is just our success rate. If you look at the top, we have, it's the 80+% of students that graduate within, 4 years. And that's way better than the national average, which the national average is 31%. So just two things I like to point out and show. And then if anybody's wondering, how many students did we serve or have we served in 1 year at within San Rafael, you'll see that we've so far supported, more than 12,000 students. And that's been made possible because of our great partnerships in the leadership. So thank you for that. We'll continue. Great. So this is a slide I was talking about when you're probably wondering, who is our student? So just breaking it down right here is 100% are low income. We really want to support the group who needs the most support. And that typically is our students that are low income, as they have the least amount of resources that we're noticing within Marin County. And, if you want to look even deeper, we can break that down into all of the ethnicities and nationalities, but we're just going to clump them together right now and show you that all students of color, we're at 89% there. And those who are first gen, we've done the data and found out that 85% of our students are first gen. So this is big for their families, as well as bringing up the next group. So thank you. And we are serving now, as of this year, 7 counties. This is huge. When we first started off, we were solely Marin and focused only in Marin with scholarship support. And now we've dove into providing ample support to our students to get them wraparound services in these, not just in Marin, but in other counties as well. So thank you for showing that slide. And our fellows. So I briefly talked about our fellows, and our fellows are our graduates that have come from, San Rafael High or Terra Linda or Madrone or, any of the other various high schools. And they come back to us really encouraged and fired up to support the students of Marin. And this is big because they realize that they got the support and other students need that support. So they come back and dive into various curriculum, building curriculum and building virtual content and then getting it out to students and meeting students really where they are. We're big on equity. We're big on getting to the students where they are. I know that's a big goal of San Rafael City Schools, is the equity piece, and we are directly in alignment with that. And so we're extremely flexible with all of our students on how they meet with us, when they meet with us, and where they can meet with us, as well as to how do we provide, what they need. Thank you. So we in the San Rafael, we do a lot of things. This is one of our more supportive regions so far. We noticed that just last or pre-COVID, I would like to say that, in our academic support team, they've supplied over 120 volunteers. The number to be exact is 124. And this is huge because they were able to go into the classrooms with K through 8, as well as 9 through 12, and provide one-to-one support, reading support, teachers in different ways, as well as tutoring programs throughout. And then we, of course, we're big on financial aid. So we are inside of the schools doing financial aid in the classrooms. We're doing virtual evening events, as well as partnering with Ms. Cifuentes, who's also an alum of 10,000 Degrees at San Rafael, and also partnering with the counselors, who we also have another alum, and we'll talk about them later, to figure out exactly where to meet the students that we are not seeing. And so far, we're doing a great job. And last year, we were able to support San Rafael High in getting through 99% completion rate for financial aid. That's the application is directly related to FAFSA and the California DREAM Act. And that is huge. Believe that is the largest submission, or the highest submission rate of any district throughout Marin. So huge, big clap for San Rafael City Schools. And in our summer opportunity, we provided a virtual content for all of Marin County. And this was to give students the know-how, the background, and the importance of college, and then giving them the right information so they can make an informed decision when it's time for them to choose the college of their choice. And we do that with helping them understand financial aid as well. Great, thank you. All right, then we have our what are our supports, our college and beyond. Excuse me. Currently, we support 378 students, or graduates actually, of San Rafael City Schools, with providing more than $700,000, and this is ranging from grades as young as freshmen to students within their 6th year of college. We also are providing more support, not just in scholarships, but also in peer support. So we're helping the students figure out their resumes. We're helping them to find, the correct careers for them, as well as just getting ready for that interview when they've graduated. And we also have a small network where we can help students to tap into and find the proper employment. And then we love to employ all of our fellows and our graduates. So just this year, we have 2 employees who work in the San Rafael City Schools. One is a fellow named Dayreen Flores Vivelo, and then we also have Kayla Itsun, who's our manager for the San Rafael City Schools, and she's a graduate of San Rafael High. So both of them are graduate of the district, and we find that to be amazing because they're making great impacts. We also had a former fellow who is now at UCSF. Her name is Maria, and she's studying education, and she graduated from Terra Linda. She was with us for 3 years before she realized that education was the best place for her. So she's now getting her master's. We also have an alum that's a counselor I spoke about earlier named, Abby, who is at San Rafael. So yeah, that's a bit about that. And let's go ahead and continue. All right, and that is our last slide. So I'd love to, stick around for any questions that anybody may have. I hope I didn't speak too quickly, as I know your time is important. So I tried to, give you all information in a nutshell within the 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Rondell. This is really great to see how the program has evolved over the last, 11 years for sure. So I invite our student trustees or our other trustees to raise your hand if you wish to say or ask a question. It's an excellent program, been supporting our students for years and expanding in partnership with our staff so our students know how to apply for college and for funding. Okay, Sophia.
I just want to say, I know that a lot of students are really benefiting from 10,000 degrees. I think TL recently just had a presentation. I'm in the college application process right now, and I can say that financial aid is one of the most intimidating things to kind of go after because it's really hard to not only complete the FAFSA, but there are also a lot of other scholarships you have to apply to. So I know that this support system is amazing for all students, and thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Trustee Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Thank you so much for this presentation. I just want to share with everyone that my two daughters were recipients of 10,000 degrees, and it is amazing how you help all the students. And I learned so many things as a parent, and I hope that it'll be the same thing with everyone else. And you guys are just amazing. And they went to San Francisco State University, and I am really happy for this program. It does work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Trustee Daly.
Just want to echo Trustee Palma's comments. This is a wonderful program, and I especially I think it's really it's the model program for how to ensure college access and success by using peer support, but also spending the time to kind of talk through what does it actually look like to apply for financial aid. Those forms are not easy, as Marina said. It is very complicated, and even with the simplification of FAFSA, it's still difficult. And then there's two other issues I wanted to bring up. The first is that, one of the things that we see a lot in higher education is an undermatching, especially with the Latinx population. So often highly qualified students are sort of, even if they could go to a CSU or UC because they have the grades to do it, sometimes they're pushed into community college, and it's programs like this stop that from happening. Because these are the types of programs that ensure that students are selecting the schools that they are ready to attend, that they have the grades to attend, and are able to succeed at them. So that's really important. The other thing is with scholarship money, every UC campus has a portion that students have to give for self-help, it's called. So it's a portion that either you have to bring in by doing federal work study, or you have to bring in your scholarship dollars. When you bring in scholarship dollars like 10,000 degrees gives you, that allows you to focus on your studies and not have to take on another job to meet that requirement. So that is ensuring that students are more able to graduate on time and are able to focus on their studies. So just wanted to highlight those two things. And thank you so much for the work you're doing. This is absolutely why there is social mobility, and we need more programs like this. So thanks for what you do.
Really appreciate all the kind comments and feedback.
Else? Okay, we'll see if there's any public comment on this from the participants. So if you are interested in saying some good words or ask a question, you can raise your hand. And we'll see if there's anybody.
Seeing none.
Okay. So Rondell, I'll bring it back to the board now, but thanks so much. I see that you actually now have team support on your own. So that's very exciting to see that. And I'm just thrilled to see you and to see the good work that's happening and how 10,000 degrees has evolved. I can absolutely say, and I think Vice President Tua Tagovailoa and I will join me, that we have seen the impact that 10,000 degrees has had on our schools and our students and our staff, and the expansion of knowledge and awareness about what it takes to go to college, a direct line back to 10,000 degrees. So take that back to where you work, let them all know, and we look forward to seeing you around on campus. Thanks so much. I'm going to bring up the next agenda item, which is coming up on announcements that we have from our whole team here. I'd ask everybody to keep it brief, highlights all the way from the trustees to our labor partners. So let's start with whoever would like to go first from our board members on a report. These are activity reports for the last 2 weeks. I shall call on one of you. Trustee Martell Dow.
Sure.
you-
Oh, I thought you were
I-
going to call the students first, but that's right. So that's why I didn't
Students,
know.
I'm gonna call the students second, so.
Perfect. That's right. I forgot it, President Jackson. So thank you. So this week is being busy. So on Monday, we had a wonderful meeting with the student trustees, and I will let them talk more about that activity. It's always a pleasure to hear from them. You know, I sometimes would like to be more supportive, but sometimes it's difficult to just change things. But I am very excited to see how our superintendent has really taken this initiative and making sure that we are responsive to some of the concerns and also the great things that are happening too. So that is actually really positive, like the homecoming and things like that. So it's not just challenges, but also a lot of celebrations and things that we also have to appreciate. The other thing that I was involved with this week is that I facilitated a panel about vaccinations in Spanish with Lisa Santora, Deputy Public Health Officer, two wonderful pediatricians from Kaiser, and an epidemiologist from Marin County HHS. So it was actually great because we got 1 hour. I personally was very privileged that I got a 1 hour basically consultation with top pediatricians and our Deputy Public Health Officer about pediatric vaccines and how the process is going to look like for the approval and also the rollout for the vaccines ages between 5 and 11. So as you know, children 12 and above are eligible, but we are waiting in any moment the FDA to actually review the data and come up with recommendations around vaccination for children. So that was an excellent panel and it was in Spanish. So I really encourage if there's anyone who is working for Spanish speaking families that I want to check it out, there's a recording of the webinar. And last but not least, I accompany the superintendent Jim Hogaboom and President Linda Jackson in the inauguration or relaunching of our dual immersion program. And I did the Spanish welcome to the parents and the people that were interested. So I also want to salute Principal Quesada and his team for the wonderful events they organized. So that's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to go next? I'll pick on Trustee Palma. Please unmute yourself and let us know what you've been up to.
Yes, I attended the ELAC 2 meeting, and it was really amazing. There were so many parents who attended, and they cover a lot of things. They talked about justified absences, counseling, how to look at your students' records, school records. They talked about the teacher parents conferences, mentioned about the assistance that parents can get regarding technical support. They also talked about a workshop that already started about how to help your students go to university. So ELAC was really, really good. This is just among so many things that they were informing the parents about. I attended the DLAC meeting. It was Pepe Gonzalez presenting it. Mr. Gonzalez actually gave an excellent presentation on LPAC. He really taught us a step-by-step what it meant, what it's for. I mean, everything. Parents had a lot of questions. They were all answered. We had a presentation from Heads Up that was really, really interesting on everything they do and what they have coming. And every school also presented what they're up to. And the one thing that caught my attention is that Venetia Valley had a Festival Latino on that Friday. I believe it was Friday the 15th. And they brought the Mexican and Guatemalan consulate to it. So many parents came and asked questions. So these 2 meetings were really, really, really informative for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Those 2 consulates have been wonderful supporters of our families over the years, and I'm just thrilled to see that they were invited and included. Trustee Daly.
Thank you, President Jackson. I just want to say a word of thanks to Trustee Lucia Martel Dow for participating in the Spanish language webinar that was put on by Marin County and Lisa Santora. It's so important that every family is talking to trusted health advisors, your pediatrician, and just be ready for this, because it is likely that the decision will be made pretty soon. And so we all want to be mentally prepared. I know I've already talked to my little guy, my 5-year-old, about as soon as they make it approved, honey, we're going to get it. So we're looking forward to that in my family. But this is really the time to have those conversations with your kids. And, there's a lot of information to make an informed decision, just as Lucia recommended. 2 quick meetings that I did for the school district since our last board meeting. Along with Vice President Tua Tagovailoa, we had the capital improvements meeting. And then we had the first parcel tax committee meeting, and welcome some new members to the parcel tax committee, including a member that is representing the senior citizen demographic, which is so important within that group, and also the Miller Creek representative. So happy to be part of that group. And that's it for me.
Vice President Tua Tagovailoa.
Thank you, President Jackson. Other than what Gina had just talked about, I checked in with Dave Pedroli and the maintenance team to get ready for the big storm, which of course we all know they did a fantastic job of keeping our schools online and running. So big kudos to them and all the hard work that they did, and diligence over the weekend. So thanks to them.
I want to say thank you to you and everybody on the construction projects, because it's one of the things we hold our breath on when the rainstorm comes along on our new buildings, and it just really it speaks well that they're holding up well through that atmospheric river that came through. For myself, I just want to say that oh gosh, let me bring it up here. I missed the last meeting. I was out of town for a memorial service, and then also to plan another memorial service for my brother who died about a year ago. So I'm sorry to miss that, but I know that you all, I know from talking with Neptu that the meeting went swimmingly. A couple of community meetings with the League of Women Voters about criminal justice, where Bill Carney spoke about his program for our students, and healthy eating, active living. I know Trustee Palma was there as well, and meetings with Superintendent and Vice President Tua Tagovailoa to prep for these board meetings and to keep up with what's going on in the campuses, as well as I'll stop there. So I'll send the rest to you, Morena. Thank you so much for your work in the minutes. I'll see you with our student trustees. We have 3 student trustees here, and Trustee Harder, you can go first.
Hello, everybody. This weekend, Centerville High had a successful homecoming. There are a lot of people to thank, but we especially want to thank our custodial and athletic staff who worked really hard to help ASB through this whole process. We also want to thank everybody on campus for their understanding and spirited attitude and their kind remarks. A new highlight this year was our hallway decorating competition between each grade, which is really fun for our whole campus to walk through one of our main buildings, our LA building, and see that. ASB is now resetting for more on-campus events. We have our bell game against TL on November 5th. We are also super excited this year to call on our advisory community. And we have been organizing some fun competitions, including a pumpkin competition scheduled for advisory this Wednesday, which has been ongoing for the past couple of weeks. We also have her second Spirit Week in a row this week. We're calling it Spooky Spirit Week, and today was Pajama Day, which I think was a really nice transition from this weekend, especially since some students did roll out of bed expecting school not to happen. So it made it that a little bit easier. And this week is also Financial Aid Week. We really appreciate all the work that has already gone into informing our students and their families on how to make high school plans fit for each person. And we also know that these events are going to be amazing and just really helpful for our students, especially during these very different years and years of transition that we're experiencing as students. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Who would like to go next? Trustee Weinstein.
Yeah, hi everyone. Tonight at TL is parent night. eighth grade parent night, which is meant for promoting, encouraging eighth grade families who are interested in learning more about Terlinda. And this event is being held online this year. We also just had the first quarter end on the 15th, and grades from teachers were due on the 20th. Today we had an equal opportunity survey that I also took. The main purpose was kind of to examine the learning cultures within the school and how to increase participation in advanced courses, and just how to make AP classes more inclusive for all students of color. Even though it was a really long survey, I think it was actually really beneficial for a lot of students to kind of sit down and reflect about, their experience at TL with academics and specifically AP classes, and how they've really happened, what kind of environment makes really inclusive and engaging environment within the classroom that's best for learning. We also are having more meetings with SLAM, and we're starting to make some action plans for the school year. And we're also continuing with our ethnic studies course meetings. We have our next one this Thursday. And like Lucia mentioned, we had our meeting last Monday with Talia, Lucia, and Mr. Hogboom and George, just kind of discussing our future plans with the Superintendent Advisory Council. And we're planning what actions we're taking this year. And we conducted a survey with the students, and the top 3 subject areas for action were race and equity, the wellness center, and the issue on homework, specifically giving less homework to students on the weekends. So those are kind of the things that are, looking ahead. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And we have one more student trustee here, Leonardo Garduno, if you'd like to give us an update from your school.
Hello, good afternoon. I have 3 reports. So the first one is that our student council has made this awesome idea where on Friday the 29th, we get to dress up in a costume for the day. And if some of the students don't celebrate Halloween, we have another activity for them. Our second announcement will be also we had a heavy storm this weekend, and and Venetia Valley had no power until the last 4 minutes until school began, which was insane. And some of the buses, which I was in, came an hour late, which was pretty bad. Finally, some of the 8th graders will be visiting USF in the city of San Francisco to see some private schools for high school. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I hope the student trustees can stick around. We want to hear your thoughts about the coaching stipends that are being proposed coming up on our agenda. So stay tuned. Don't have to say anything, but if you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Trustee, Superintendent Hogeboom, it's your turn.
Thank you, President Jackson. Just a couple things. Wednesday's a busy day. We have the schools rule distribution of the money they give to Heads Up, which is awesome. We have our Superintendent Parent Council, budget advisory committees. Thank you, Bob. The high school and elementary budget advisory committees, those are all kicking in on Wednesday. And then Bob and I are also joining the Santa Fe staff and community for the annual golf tournament. So Natu, I don't know if you're going on that or not either, but we hope it doesn't rain on Friday so we can support the golf tourney. And I think we're the last tee off time because I'm hoping it's dark and no one has to watch me play, but it should be fun.
We'll be taking videos. Okay, and now we are on time for our union partners. So Christina, we'll see if you could let me know who is.
Yes, we have Katina who will be joining, and then I'll have Eric with SRFT on deck next.
And Molly is not here tonight, I gather. Okay, so Katina, please. Oh, there you are. Hi, welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Katina Pantazis. I represent the non-management classified staff as the CSCA chapter president. I want to thank the teachers, whereas the last 3 months, they have consistently praised classified staff. The truth is we're doing everything that's being asked of us and pleased to hear the affirmation. Unfortunately, the classified staff is not happy and very disappointed. This year, the district did not participate in the CSCA compensation survey. It is the first time since Superintendent Hugeboom has been with SRCS that this was not completed. It is most disappointing because we're having job descriptions evaluated and redone by J.B. Jacobson, an outside contractor hired by the district. The compensation survey would have been a valuable tool to evaluate how SRCS fits with other surrounding school districts. In addition, classified staff have been dealing with payroll errors since August. We hope that October's paycheck will get everyone caught up and not be continued on to November. What is equally disappointing is that the district isn't able to communicate to our employees what their hourly rate is, how many vacation days they earn, and how many sick days they have. By pointing to the ESS system as the employee's resource, those who are in our lower salaries do not have the clarity as the employees who work 8 hours in 12 months. For example, not knowing the district's formula makes it impossible for our staff in our food service to do a self-check on their paycheck. Everyone should be able to look at their paycheck and understand it. I hope next month I'll have a brighter update, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Eric, before you get started, I do want to know that the next item on this agenda is public comment on items that are not on the agenda. And so if you do wish, if there's someone from the public who wishes to make a comment on anything that's not on our agenda tonight, you're welcome to please raise your hand now so we can be ready for you. So Eric, good evening, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. My name is Eric Schongren. I'm a vice president of the San Rafael Federation of Teachers and a science teacher at Terra Linda High School. I would like to thank the Board of Education and the district leadership for their support, flexibility, and patience throughout the pandemic. Our 2 comprehensive high schools and 1 continuation high school have just finished our first quarter in live, in-person, masked instruction with full classrooms and no social distancing requirements. I want to emphasize that it has been probably the most single difficult quarter that we have ever had to work through our entire careers, bar none, for a whole host of reasons. For many of our students, this is the first time they've attended high school live at all. The pacing, the workload, and most importantly, the assessments have been a marked change from last year and a half. Many parents, students, and teachers are not happy with the results we are seeing in the classroom and the grade books. Just know that every teacher out there is bending over backwards, trying to be creative, caring, and passionate to mitigate the academic and social stresses felt by everyone. This first grading period must be seen for what it is, the first step of many toward the return of high quality, rigorous, enriching education to San Rafael City Schools. I would like to ask all of you here to please continue to support the teachers, students, parents, and school staff with grace, understanding, and affirming manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. I ask our superintendent to, you don't have to respond to anything. I do know there's some things you heard about busing and payroll, and I love the thought of grace along with our joy and community and equity. So if you could, afterwards, when you have a chance, Jim, if you could follow up on some of these, that would be great. I want to move on to public comment on non-agenda items. And we'll see is there anybody have any hands raised?
Seeing none.
Okay, so we will move on to our first item on our agenda, our discussion action sessions, which is approval of recommendation to increase high school athletic coach stipends. And I believe this is our assistant superintendent for business in the business office, Bob Marcucci.
Well, actually, I'll kick this one off, and
Okay.
I'll let Bob chime in if he wants to. So our 2 athletic directors, Terra Linda and San Rafael High School, Steve and Jose, came to cabinet a couple months ago, and they had done some surveys of TAM and Novato Unified with the pay that was given to their coaches, and it clearly showed that we were out of line with what we were being asked to pay with our competitors. So Bob and Amy and I with Ray Mayoral kind of met with them and talked about it. And we talked about, they had kind of an initial proposal. We looked at it. We kind of wanted to get a feel for why we would put people in categories. So we ended up coming up with, I believe, 5 tiers in terms of how much time each of those coaches put into the sports, as well as how many people. So you'll see eventually, and Steve and Jose are going to talk about this some more, that a sport like track and field, where you have maybe 80 athletes out there at the same time, or football where you've got 60 or 70 kids, along with the amount of time, and again, I'll use football, where not only do you have games a lot of times on weekends, you have film you've got to watch all weekend long and all that kind of stuff. So that we kind of clustered we clustered them in those tiers, and hopefully, yeah, well, there's Steve. So Steve, I'm going to let you take it from there, even though I kind of gave a little overview of it, but we think it's a great way to be more, we want to be competitive. We know that our coaches in general are woefully underpaid when you go to we really don't want to look at an hourly basis, because our coaches are really doing this because they love working with our students, but we like to be able to reward them as much as possible. So with that, I'll let Steve take it away and fill in the gaps that I couldn't do. And maybe Christina, you can bring up that spreadsheet.
Thanks, Jim. Basically, first off, there would not be a high school athletic program without our coaching staffs. They put in a tireless amount of time and effort into their individual sports. So as Superintendent Hogaboom said before, we broke this down. Jose and I worked on this, broke this down into a 4 or 5 tier system, and it was based on the number of hours that a coach puts in, the number of athletes in their sport, along with the number of coaches that they have to supervise. So football, who has a staff of 7 and typically has 2 or 3 football teams with anywhere from 65, 70 to 85, 90, 100 kids. You put that into play, and they're supervising a lot. They're putting a lot of time in watching film. They're putting in time putting practice together, and basically managing the staff. So at the football was put in the top tier with a $3,500 stipend, and then the assistant coaches below that are all based on a percentage basis below that. So the junior varsity coach would be at 75% of the coaching staff, and then freshmen, so on, and then the assistant coaches are at a lower number. So then our next tier, we had basketball, soccer, and track and field. Track and field, while not necessarily the same amount of hours, they typically have 85 kids on their team and a staff of 3 or 4. And soccer, we have jumped from a low, what would probably have been in the 3rd tier to the 2nd tier because of the number of hours they now need to spend. Games are typically on Saturdays. It's become a 6-day-a-week sport. One of the other things that we've asked to do, we've added assistant coaching positions in a number of sports, which is at half of at the varsity level. And those sports are basketball, soccer, softball, baseball, track and field already had assistant coaches, football already had assistant coaches. So the reason adding a varsity assistant coach had to do with managing the team. There was some discussion at one point whether or not we wanted to put add more to the coach's stipend at the varsity level as opposed to the assistant. And after a lot of discussion, it was determined that the coaches would rather have another set of eyes and another person helping them as opposed to a couple $100 extra. So the varsity assistants are typically at 50% of what the varsity coach will make. Other than that, I mean, that was kind of the breakdown. We also added a stipend for esports, which is electronic sports, which right now I don't know if San Rafael's participating, but Terra Linda's got a club team, but we're adding it to this because this is something that's up and coming through the CIF. So it's basically video games. And we have a club at Terra Linda that's led by teacher Bruce Guston. I think for the most part that encapsulates the tiering system. We had in the fourth tier, we had tennis, golf, and cross country. So the remainder of the sports were in the third tier. So I believe we have it's a 4-tier system. With the varsity coaches in the football in the top tier at 3,500, the second tier at 3,000, the third tier was 2,750, and the fourth tier was at 2,250 for the varsity coaches, and then the percentages I stated earlier for the JV and freshman coaches. So again, as I stated before, we would not have this program without the tireless hours that our coaches put in. And we really appreciate the efforts that they all make. And so, I mean, if anyone has any questions or wants to add anything. I don't know if Jose made it on. Jose was doing a North Coast section application for one of his teams for application for this coming weekend. So I don't know if he's made it on, but if there's anything anybody would like to add.
Jose, I don't know if you heard the presentation. We just got an overview of the spreadsheet, and if you have anything you want to add at this point, or we'll get some Q&A from our trustees too. So, but Jose, you have a chance.
I think Steve did a great job giving you the overview of all that. I was able to hear that, so great job, Steve.
Well, Linda, let me just say, and I'll ask Bob to chime in for a minute. So when we looked at all of that, the total additional cost for all of the stipends was $36,789. I think it's well worth it. We're right in line with where Tam and Novato are. We don't want to look at this every year. We want to probably look at it every 4 or 5 years. It's been a while since we've looked at it. Bob, also, is there anything else you want to bring up, Bob?
No, I think you hit it there, Jim, with, to bring us up to be on par with the high school districts around us, right there in competitive with everybody else at 36,789 seems doable, pretty moderate increases across the board, and some extra support with the assistant coaches for our students. So I don't know if there's much else to be said that hasn't been said already.
Thank you so much for all that explanation. That's very good. I'd like to invite our Vice President of the Board, Natu Tagaloa, if he has anything he wants to add or say at this point.
Thank you, President Linda. I will just say that, sports is an important part of our curriculum for our kids. For some kids, it's the reason why they show up to school. So it's really important to keep kids engaged. I really appreciate all the hard work that both Steve and Jose put into this and putting together a really nice system that they can, hold coaches accountable to, number one, for putting in the time and taking care of the kids. But more importantly, to keep us in line with the rest of the districts here in Marin that we compete against. Coaches are hard to find. And I know that Steve and Jose do a really good job of trying to support all of our coaches and get new coaches when needed. And I know that the students are thriving out there on the field. We've got a lot of kids that play sports, which is really, really good. And I'm really happy about that. So I really appreciate, bringing this back to the board and revisiting it every few years to make sure that we're in line and keeping our coaching staff and assistant coaches getting paid what they need to get paid to do the job, take care of our kids. So thank you very much, guys. You're doing a great job.
Okay, so see if any trustees have questions or comments. I do have a couple questions, but I want to make sure that we get yours on the board first. Trustee Harder.
I just want to say how important our athletic staff right now and our coaches are for our students, especially coming back from a year of a lot of distance and social isolation. I know that teams are a really great place for our newer students, some sophomores and freshmen, to connect, and also older students to just reconnect. And I'm just really grateful for that staff, and I'm glad that they're getting what they deserve this year, because it is really just incredibly valuable to have these teams on our campuses.
Trustee Palmer.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. And I believe in sports being practiced by all of our students. I know that it helps them in many different ways. Mental health, motivation to go to school, to stay out of trouble, to meet other students. And I totally agree that we need to compensate our instructors with the increased stipends. Thank you so much.
Trustee Weinstein, I think I saw your hand. Yes.
Adding on to what Rena was just talking about, I think that from a mental health standpoint, like I know that sports is just so beneficial for all students, just to be able to get outside after doing homework for hours or be inside, school for so long. I think that's really beneficial just to go outside. I've been playing varsity tennis all 4 years, and I've had 2 coaches in that time. My recent coach right now, I know that she puts so much time and effort into not only, being there for all the players, but she really tries to make a really close-knit community between all the players. And it's not only for places where, people who have been playing the sport for so long, there's new players who are coming constantly just, for fun to learn a new sport. So I think it's a really beneficial program. And I know it's beneficial for almost all students. Yeah.
With the spirit of equity that we have, I have to admit that the first thing I looked at was equity, but for Title IX, and that's for the girls. And we get this, we have in the past gotten these by season, halfway through the season. So it's wonderful to see this laid out like this. I just have a couple of questions. I noticed that like for baseball, I think there's a freshman coach, but for softball, there's not. And I was just wondering, is there going to be, anticipation of a girls softball team for freshmen? These are important ways of getting girls to be able to.
Jose, I'll take that if you, actually right now at Terra Linda, we only have only had a varsity baseball team. So we didn't even have the JV and the freshman teams the last couple of years. We anticipate having 2 teams on the baseball side this year. Typically with softball, it has to do with numbers and number of kids coming out for the sport. And countywide, the only school that has fielded a junior varsity team in the sport of softball over the last, I think it's probably close to 10 years now, is Redwood. So it's really strictly a numbers issue in terms of the number of kids that come out. To have that second team, you need at least 12 players. And we typically, in softball at both of our schools, come anywhere in between 12 and 16 softball players at best. We weren't even in our last COVID year at Terra Linda to be able to field a softball team because we only had 9 kids come out, and some were playing other sports as well. So we couldn't even field a softball team last spring in the COVID year. So it's pretty much strictly a numbers thing.
Obviously, you'd want the equal number of girls as boys participating, and you do that with the opportunities. So, but I just put that on for your radar screen for the next round when you're looking at it and,
absolutely
being able to do. So the other question I have is under track and field. So it has 2 assistant coaches. Is that one for the boys and one for the girls?
Jose, why don't you take that one? Go ahead.
Yeah, so track and field, essentially, to think about it, it's 5 teams that come together, right? So the assistant coaches normally focus on a certain event, whether it be hurdles, shot put, and discus, right? So there's different events that they focus on. So that's essentially what the assistant assistant coaches do. A lot of the head coaches handle all the behind the scene things, but the assistants tend to focus on a specific type of event in track and field. So that's what those assistant coaches would do.
They're not specifically for boys or girls, but for a specific sport. So
A specific event in track and field. Yeah.
Okay, and then the last question I have is about mountain biking. So, you know, when seeing esports being added, but in the past at Santa Fe High, we've had a very strong mountain biking team. And is that off the chart, or is that and that is a co-ed sport?
Speaking at Terra Linda, yes, it is a co-ed sport. We do have it is same thing. It is a club sport, and I do believe our coach does get paid, but I believe it might be paid through the ASB club program and not necessarily through the district. But it is a paid position, and if we feel that would like to add it to this, I'd be happy to do that.
Steve, I think that's what Katie was saying, is it's a club sport. And right now, yeah, we didn't include club sports in there at this point.
Right. And I know that esports is a club sport also, but I think it's trending toward, and that's why it's on the list.
Yeah, same with Santa Fe. It's still a club sport.
But we have a club sport on here. So those are kind of things that I think parents look at and they ask, why is this on and not another? So
I do remember something about that esports was CIF certified, whereas maybe mountain biking is not yet. Is that true?
That is correct.
Thank you, Bob. That clarifies that. I can say for myself that it's great to see this kind of organization and rationale for it. On the tiers that you outlined for us so carefully, is that documented somewhere? So when someone's looking at this again in 2 or 3 years, it's clear and doesn't have to be reinvented.
Yeah, Bob, do you have that, Bob, to bring up?
I do. Do you want me to bring it up now, or did you just want to know?
A simple yes would be good, that you have it documented for that. Thank you, Jim.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that we don't have to, nobody has to watch the video here in a few years. Any other comments from trustees? We'll take public comment now. We'll see if anybody in the participants list on this Zoom call wants to raise their hand. We'll see if there's any comment.
Seeing none.
So bring that back to the board. I think what we need is a motion, right?
I move that we approve this item and increase the stipends for our coaches.
I'll second that.
All right. Moved by Trustee Daly and seconded by Trustee Palma to approve the updated stipends for coaches. Any last comments? All right, Trustee Palma.
Aye.
Trustee Martel Dow.
Aye.
Trustee Daly.
Aye.
Trustee Tuatagaloa.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye as well, so that matter passes. Thank you so much, and thank you to the student trustees for your comments and support for our coaches. The next item up is approval of the, what do you call this, Jim? Is this the SR3 expenditure plan? Actually, I should ask Bob this.
Yeah, Bob's going to take that one away. I'd love to explain it, but Bob might do a better job with it.
Okay. All right. Let's hear the explanation.
Sure. Thank you, President Jackson. And it is SR3, and SR stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief. And so we've got a quick, just a 3-slide quick presentation here to share. So Christine, if you want to go to the next slide. So I wanted to just start by talking a little bit about the big picture complexity with all of the COVID dollars. And I know Jim Superintendent Hogaboom wanted me to keep reminding folks of the context. So all of this funding that has come into our district in particular, there are 15 different sources of dollars, whether that's federal or state dollars. There's 7 different timelines within those 15 sources and about 8 different reports or plans that are associated with all of those dollars. And so it's really complex. And then when you add on top of that, the LCAP plan and the specificity with how we need to spend certain funds within our LCFF allocation, it's quite a challenging undertaking. And you can see that we've been allocated a certain level of funding in the elementary district. If you take all of those 15 sources, it equals $17,537,224. We've only received about 40% of that at this time. And then in the high school district, it equals 8.2 million, and we've received about 55% of that funding at this time. So we're still, sometimes we're talking about money that we actually have, and sometimes we're talking about money that that's been promised to us. So that's an important sort of context to provide when we're talking about COVID dollars. Go ahead, next slide, Christina. So this was a slide that we shared at our unaudited actuals. And so this is like the latest that we have as of the end of the fiscal year in 2020, 2021, of what's been received, or what level we've been funded, what we've received, what we've spent, and then sort of the timeline associated with each of those dollars. And we have a much more complicated spreadsheet that our fiscal director, Marie Enrio, and I are constantly working with, reconciling, and sort of pulling all of these pieces of funding together to make sense of the district's goals and actions associated with all of them. So, but tonight we're really specifically focusing on ESSER 3, which is in the next slide, provides some highlights, and also in the actual plans are, I believe, linked in, are they linked in this item, or are they linked in the consent agenda? I don't remember, but they're in here somewhere. And those are the actual plans that we submit to the Marin County Office of Education, and they provide that AB 1200 oversight. So when we're talking about ESSER 3, the elementary and secondary emergency relief funding, for the elementary district, it's almost 5.2 million. The high school district, 2 million or 2.1 million. And the actions that are in these plans are things that are all very much aligned with all of the work that we did last year with the budget advisory committees, both elementary and high school, and together with all of the other outreach that was done through superintendent's councils, student councils, and ELAC meetings, all of the sort of consensus that was built around some of these items. So you can see, for example, in the elementary district, we've looked at funding our additional school counselors for multiple years, so that we're able to maintain that level of support at the school sites for not just this 1 year, but for at least two years, possibly 3. We have some trauma-informed professional development that is happening this year that will be working with those counselors so that they can then work with the staff at each school site. We had a major need across the elementary schools and the high schools for outdoor lunch tables. We have more students needing to eat outside. We've got some really old tables, and just really try to respond to the need. When outdoor tables are about $1,000 per table. So you can just think about, this is an opportunity that we have to sort of meet the moment and have something that will last a long time. 20% of ESSER funds need to be spent on expanded learning. And so we'll be working closely with cabinet and with our other leaders in the district to determine exactly what that looks like and what that is. I think I loved Pepe Gonzalez's idea earlier tonight about the boot camps during the breaks. That's a perfect example of extending the learning, right? We'd like to fund instructional assistants, which we all know are really hard to find and staff at the moment, but we'd like to fund those and provide that level of support for multiple years. Community liaisons as well. And then moving with technology, moving to one-to-one in our second grade and kind of pushing that down. We're hearing that. I know Sarah, our IT director, Sarah, Ashton has talked a lot about how she's hearing that from our school sites as well. In the high school, campus supervisors, multiple years, we added campus supervisors this year. We'd like to ensure that we have that level of supervision across multiple years. Again, 20% needs to be on expanded learning, funding our fuel program for multiple years and making sure that we have that support for our high school students that need some credit recovery, as well as our independent or our online learning platform at the moment. Again, community liaisons and some technology for adult ed, and adult ed is what we call essentially the large influx of older newcomers that we've gotten. So these are Chromebooks that go to some of our most vulnerable and amazing students. And then down below, you can see the expenditure window. This money gives us until September 2024 to spend. We actually haven't received any of this money yet, but we're hoping, as of today, we're hoping some of that will start to trickle in soon, and we can start to do what we need to do. And then again, always, I think with a lot of the COVID dollars, we need to try to maintain as much flexibility as we can, because the rules change, the needs change, I just think we need to make sure that we're able to ebb and flow with some of the information that we get related to these funds. So I'm sure there are some questions about the ESSER plan, and I'm happy to take any of them.
Okay, thank you so much for that overview. And then in the board report, there are the specific breakdowns for the proposed spending of the ESSER funds. I'll open it up for questions from board members. Trustee Daly.
Thanks, Bob, for the report, and especially, the first slide you did about the complexity of this funding. It's wonderful we've gotten all this one-time funding, but with that, there's a lot of complexity about the sources of funding, the timelines of when it has to be used, the eligible uses for the funding, the reporting requirements. I mean, it's dizzying how complicated it is. So thank you for laying that out, because I think as we're trying to have transparency about how we're using that funding, I think it's important to also talk about, here are the confines in which we're trying to operate, and here's how we have to do it in the timeline. The point that I wanted to have you talk about a little bit more is, you did mention a few items that are going to be multi years of funding, like the counselors and the campus supervisors. And I know this issue has been raised in board meetings in the past, but what are we doing to plan for when that funding ends? So with the ESSER 3 funds, it has to be used by September of 2024. So in that 2024-2025 school year, we wouldn't necessarily have that funding for the extra counselors we've hired. Now, I think we all know that there has been pretty specific trauma because of the pandemic, but obviously we've always needed more counselors. So I would love to hear, how are we planning to make sure that we don't hit that deadline and suddenly we don't have the support that we need, and that our students and families have relied on because they've had a few years of it. So anything you can do to answer that question and how we're planning for it.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Daly. That you really know how to cut right to the heart of it. That is absolutely a concern of mine, in the sense that we have a lot of work to do. So I think in some ways what this does is this buys us some time to have the important conversations that we're going to need to have about what the priorities are, because we can't keep everything, right? To your point, we've increased counseling, we've increased supervision, we've maintained our instructional coaching, like all of these things that we're able to do in response to the pandemic and to the needs of our students. But there is a cliff looming, and as the information becomes more and more clear as to how large of a drop off that is, or whether it's more sloped than a sharp cliff, I think we'll have a better sense as to which things are our priorities as a district. What do we keep? Where do we make some cuts to deal with the deficit spending issue that we have when we look at our multi-year projections? And I think what this COVID dollar, these COVID funds do is, to your point, it's a wonderful problem to have. It also really clouds the conversation that we as a district need to be having. And I was on the phone earlier today with Kate Lane from the Marin County Office of Education, and she certainly expressed her concern with some of those patterns of deficit spending that we see when we look ahead. And I know that she'll be engaging with us all along the way to make sure that we're making some good fiscal decisions.
Can I make a brief comment too? I think specifically around the mental health piece. One thing I would love to see the district do, especially because we have this opportunity, we've increased our counseling, we're offering more services, our wellness centers. I think we really need to track how many more people are we serving with this money. And the reason for that is to build a case to go to Sacramento to say that this is ongoing need. There has to be a source of funding for this going forward. But if we don't have the data to back that up, it's going to be harder to make that case. As much as I would love for us to not have mental health needs in 2 years, I just don't think it's going to happen. So, but use this time to build that case for us to ask for those additional dollars, and happy to be part of that discussion and to think about how we can best make that case. But this is something every school district is seeing, and so and certainly the needs of our students and families with mental health is very very obvious during this time. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
I see that our student trustees have left for the budget conversation. So we'll see if there's another question from another trustee about the expenditure of these funding or proposed expenditures. No. So I'll say I share the same concerns of Trustee Daly. I also am confused because some of these things I know we're funding with LCFF money. Now that's ongoing money. So for the community liaisons that we're funding with LCFF money, right? These are additional community liaisons that we're bringing on.
We have increased community liaisons, and so these are additional, as well as some of our community liaisons. They're multiple funded from different pots, whether it's title funds or for supplemental and concentration funds from LCFF, and partly through these ESSER funds. So it's a mixture of sources to do the work.
It does seem to me that these are additional people that are now, when the county has just also received a large influx of support funding, and for the staff that they are hiring, they're hiring them on a temporary basis. So the staff knows that they're coming in with without the expectation that in 2 or 3 years they're going to be they will be let go because the funding is temporary. So I hope that we can consider doing that out of fairness to the people that we're hiring. And also out of fairness to the people that we have on as permanent funded positions on an ongoing basis so that they have that security. I noticed that, I mean, in elementary schools, we have 2.7 million for counselors. We've funded counselors through LCFF funding as well. So these are additional counselors to deal with the mental health issues that Gina identifies. Is that correct? I see Jim saying yes. Okay.
So what we do with a lot of the counselors, Linda, was a lot of the counselors, especially at elementary, were split between schools. So basically we gave every elementary school a full-time counselor and also made the 3 counselors at Davidson full-time. So that was the biggest change, I think, there, to give everybody a full-time person that before they were splitting.
Well, and remember it's multiple years. So it's, you know, in 1 year, the additional counselors kind of multiply that by 2 and 3 years. And so it does look like larger amounts.
Well, we'll get LCFF next year for the permanent funding. And then this funding runs out. So I do see a million for summer school, which is great because we need to really have a robust summer school program at all of our schools this coming year, because we have learned that on a national level, at least 4 years behind, or 4 months behind in math and 3 months behind in English language arts. And when we heard our high school representative of the high school union talking about the challenge that teachers have in teaching their program, their curriculum, their years of experience to students that are not coming in with what they lost. And it does put stress on our teachers in their work in adjusting their programs, their expectations, and their curriculum. So anyway, those are some things to think. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just to speak to that, and again, so for ESSER 3 funds, 20% of that money needs to be spent on that. But that also is a great window into the complexity of utilizing these funds, because there's multiple pots of money that are all directed toward expanding learning and providing, you know, more instruction throughout the school day or during breaks or during summer. And it does create almost a bottleneck of sorts of funding to try to make all of that come to a reality and staff all of that. And so it's just a great example of the sort of the complexity when our legislators they all wanted to sort of help and solve the same problem. And it does make it challenging.
Yeah, your first slide really outlined that, of all the different pots that are coming your way, and they all come with their own different color of money inside of it. So, and how challenging that is. But, you know, I think you've heard from us about the priorities that we have that we'd like to see for our students. I want to take any public comment that we may have. So we'll see if there's anybody who wants to raise their hand and make a comment.
See none.
Okay. So with that, I will bring it back to the board then for, I believe you need a motion. So is there a motion to approve the expenditure plan for the ESSER 3?
So
I move to, yeah, go ahead, Natsu. I'll second.
Okay, moved by Vice President Tuatagaloa and seconded by Trustee Martel Dow to approve the ESSER 3 expenditure plan. Roll call. So Trustee Palma.
I'll abstain.
Dow.
Yeah, yes, aye.
Trustee Daly.
Aye.
Trustee Tuatagaloa.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So that motion passes with 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Thank you so much. Okay, so our next item up is receipt of donations to San Rafael schools. I want to note that when this item is done, before we start item 4 on capital improvements, we'll take a short break so we can get up and stretch. So approval of receipt of donations to San Rafael City Schools. Bob Marcucci.
Yeah, so these are always fun. We had one of our community members, Beverly Brewster, who donated $5,000 to the Laurel Dell Music and Arts programs, and how fitting that we had Principal Gonzalez talk about finding grants and other donors to make sure that those kids get what every other kid gets. And here's a perfect example. So thank you to Beverly Brewster and her donation.
Thank you.
Move for approval.
I move to accept the donation.
I think we have a motion. I'll take that as a second for that. So moved by Trustee Tuatagaloa and seconded by Trustee Palma to accept the donation of $5,000 Laurel Dell School. Trustee Palma.
Aye.
Trustee Martel Dow.
Aye.
Trustee Daly.
Aye.
Vice President Tuatagaloa.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. That motion passes. We will now take, let's see, what time is it? It's 7:48. So we will take a, let's come back at, 7:55. Okay, so stretch your legs. We'll be back and we're going to hear all about capital facilities. Well, welcome back. A few more people, and there we go. See if we've got nearly everybody back. And one more. Let's give it another minute here. Great. Okay. I'll call the meeting back to order. 7:55, and we've got some very exciting items coming up. And so I will turn it over to our superintendent setting this up for us.
Yeah, so Dr. Dan Zeit has done an amazing job as our Senior Director of Capital Facilities to manage all the bond dollars that we've had, making fantastic progress and staying in budget. So Dan is going to give kind of an overall capital facilities report to start with, and then we want to talk to the board a little bit about the possibility of considering a facilities bond measure in 2022, and Dan will bring in some of our people that help us out with those kind of financial decisions and otherwise. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dan.
All right. Good evening, President Jackson, Board of Education, Superintendent Hogaboom. Thank you for this opportunity to give you an update on Capital Facilities Program. This update correlates with several items on our consent agenda this evening, so you'll see those referenced. And I'll go ahead and share my screen and put the presentation up for everyone to see here. Is that coming through loud and clear?
Yes, it is.
Okay, those are our Halloween colors there.
I thought they were giants.
Yeah, giants. So the agenda for this presentation is our project updates for Terra Linda High School and San Rafael High School, a quick program budget update, and a quick asset management update. This is our competition gym that's coming at us here. This was me hang gliding above the campus there to take a photograph. You can see the makings of the gym there, the foundation work going into place, and you can just see that's half of the gym outline there. Here's another perspective. So we're making good progress, and hopefully this storm didn't set us back too far. One of the first items on the consent agenda this evening is the conceptual design of the Terra Linda East Plaza. And so if people are able to see my cursor here, just to orient everyone, this is the breezeway or the bridge in front of campus there. Over this direction would be the first north entrance. So we've been working with a subset of our school site committee at the campus there, made up of different stakeholders, teachers, students, and getting feedback through the larger site committee on this design work. But I think you'll be able to see the focus of this. A lot of the feedback has been on finding little student nodes for the kids to get picked up, students to get picked up and dropped off at campus there. And so that's some of the design work that's going on here. It also incorporates some of the change in the way the campus is utilized. Students will be walking towards this direction from parking their cars. And so we've increased stairs and entrances and created a lot of shade and sitting places for students to gather and talk and study. So just a quick update. I've shown this drawing, but a quick update on our frontage project. You'll see on this slide a little bit of around our logistics. We're expecting some major changes in the front there starting this next month. We've got different areas that are going to require reduced parking while we go through this temporary construction. And we've been working on how to accommodate that and the plan for communication with the neighbors and of course all the community, the students and parents for what to expect. So it's hopefully as clear as possible when we get there. And this is going to go through till the most likely through the end of summer 2022 till we get through with that work. And it's a lot of coordination with PG&E. We're also working on the bus, working to make sure the bus company knows where to pick up and drop students up. This is onto the San Rafael High School STEAM. This is if you're looking out your window, if you're a student in class, this is the view you'll be seeing from the second story of the STEAM building. It's going to look beautiful and inspirational. Here is some of, I just want to show the vapor barrier work that's going into place. And on the right, you know, all the foam, I've joked about the foam from your Amazon boxes or your packages, but this foam on the right is goes into place to help secure the foundation before the foundation is poured. And it has a lot to do with the tidal floodplain and being able to make sure that our engineers have come up with this as a way to secure the building there with our soil conditions. And so it's pretty cool just to see all the engineering work that goes into this project. As part of the consent agenda this evening, and Safe Routes to School has brought this issue to the district's attention, staff's attention for quite a while. It's one that we've been hoping to capture with towards the end of the bond in the high school with our site improvements budget, which you'll see in our program update this evening. But the widening of the 3rd Street sidewalk from to 10 feet wide in a new softball fence out there. And you can see that demonstrated on the right. On the left is the current condition. So we'll double the sidewalk from 5 to 10 feet all the way through down to the fire station. And that's on the consent agenda for design approval this evening. And it really goes well with, you can see in this drawing, our 3rd Street crosswalk that we worked on with the city and the transportation, TAM, transportation of Marin. And they were able to help fund this project. And you see the relation of the 3rd Street crosswalk with the widening of the sidewalk there in the relations. So excited about that. Okay, on to a quick program update for both Measure A and Measure B. I wanted to highlight here some of the different work that's specifically related to our ESSER 2 funding. Lots of conversation about the ESSER funds, but the ESSER 2 helped us complete the work at Bahia Vista and Davidson this summer, and it's specifically related to mechanical systems and being able to heating and ventilation in our schools. And so we've been working to incorporate these projects in the elementary district. And you can see that shown there on the 1.1 for Bahia Vista and 1.1 for Davidson. in that how that's rolled up into the budget there. And I will move on to the Measure B budget and highlight that this budget, since the last time you saw it, just last month, it also captures the ESSER2 funding of $500,000 for the high school. And it also it counts the interest, the bond interest. And then what we've done is we've created the site improvements project with the remaining program balance that I was describing earlier, which we've done for Terra Linda previously. And so that's captured in this overall program budget here. And I'm going to talk briefly about our asset management work. We've been very engaged in the first phases of land use and site constraint analysis. And the next steps will be to share the results of the site constraints and land use analysis, like the biological studies and so on, and what those impacts mean for each of the different asset properties we've been working with. We'll be sharing those back to the Board of Education. And then after sharing those out, the next step will be to take that information to stakeholder engagement meetings and share those findings. This is another way to organize the same information and share it. But I wanted to make sure that this information is out because there's been different things happening at, by example, at our McPhail site. The county is beginning, unrelated to our work, but the county is beginning their levee reconstruction out there. And so the school district may start to get lots of questions because they may use a certain portion of McPhail's for construction, lay down and or equipment, and that may interest the neighbors. Another recent update is that one of the parties interested in McPhail's Wild Care has shared that they're going to develop their property, their downtown property further. But they may be also interested in while that work is taking place, doing some temporary, being able to use our site temporarily out there for a short period and leasing the property for short term. So those are just a couple of the recent things. And so there's some activity there that I wanted to make sure was out to the Board of Education. And with that, I'll ask if there's any questions and I'll stop sharing.
Yep, thank you, Dan, for that report. Appreciate it. Excellent overview. We have these two major bond measures, hundreds of millions of dollars. And now we're at this point where we're finishing up construction. We leveraged a lot of money along the way. We leveraged partnerships along the way. And we've seen the fruits of it with buildings that are beautiful and rainproof and climate change friendly innovations. So it's all wonderful to see. Let's see. Greg Isom needs to be promoted to panelist. Christina, I'll let you handle that one.
Okay, I think we tried to earlier and something might have happened, but I'll try again.
Is he, Dan, is he wanting to say a few words at this point?
It's for the next presentation here.
Thank you. I thought so. Okay. So now is the time to be asking about the construction that we've been doing, the bond measures, and we'll see if there's any questions from the trustees. Oh my. Okay. Trustee Daly, then Trustee Palmer.
I'll let Marina go first.
Okay. Trustee Palmer.
I'll be sure. I promise.
It was a tie.
I am very happy and impressed with all the updates and the new constructions going on in our schools. Mostly impressed with the safety improvements that you'll be doing. My question is, and maybe you provided this information before because I want to see this finish eventually. Do we have right now enough money to finish everything that you have planned?
That's such a great segue. But yes, everything that's planned, we have enough money to finish it. And that's part of our next conversation and next presentation here. It'll segue perfect into talking about a future potential bond here in 2022. Thank you.
That was not a plant, Dan, but it is a perfect question for you. Okay, Trustee Daly.
Great question, Trustee Palma. And I also want to pick up on, I think one of the most important improvements that's happening, especially at the Terra Linda School, is that we're going to be adding excellent bike access so that more members of the community can bike to school rather than having to drive a car, and it'll be safer for everyone. And so I really hope that, we continue to look for opportunities to improve safe routes to schools, especially with bike riding, but they're also just going to be beautiful facilities. And, thank you to the taxpayers for voting for our bond measures so that we can have world-class facilities for our students in this district, because they're truly incredible. So thanks to Dan and the whole team. We've been in very good hands with all these projects, and it's great to see they're almost all over the finish line, this group of them. So that's great to see.
Yeah, I just wanted to add there, it really has been a collaborative effort. Safe Routes to School, the Transportation Authority of Marin, TAM, the City of San Rafael have really all come together to help us these past few years figure out how to leverage our money and partner together to create safer ways for our students to get to school and our families. So thanks for highlighting that for us.
Anybody else? Okay, on this particular item, I think that this is a report and an update, so there is no action required, but I want to take a moment to see if there's anybody who wants to say anything in public comment to us. So if you do, raise your hand.
Seeing none.
Okay, come back, and now we are going to do the part that Trustee Palma was asking about. So Dan, I'll let you take it from here for the next part, unless our superintendent. Okay, we're ready to go here.
Okay. So this is the presentation, the segue that Trustee Palma was asking for, the need to focus on a potential GEO bond, facilities bond for 2022. And this is a three-part presentation. I have several people, experts with me this evening to help on the presentation side. The first part, and this will be a little longer presentation, so I hope we can stop along the way after each one of these sections and ask questions and discuss and engage together. So the first part is the need for a 2022 facilities bond, and I'll go through with one of the principal architects and owners from HY Architects, Marcus Hipser is going to join me for that presentation. Then the second part is the financial planning, and Greg Isom is going to advise through that section of the presentation. And then finally, our bond measure planning with Charles Heath is going to walk us through the final steps here this evening. So please stop me along the way and let me know if there's areas you'd like more information on. So of course, the first question is why? Why do we need to do this? And I think this is an important question to help answer up front and provide data and information around for the community. So several schools, I'll just start going through the list here real quickly and summarize. Several schools simply weren't scheduled in the last 2014 bond. Many of our facilities are at the end of their life cycle. They've lived in their facilities lifespan. There's some timeliness to discuss around the buyout of the potentially for the 1999 GEO bond, and our financial advisor Greg is going to discuss that in much greater detail. There is a lot of work happening in Sacramento with our lobbyist organization CASH for a statewide facilities bond on the ballot in 2022, which if folks will remember, we leveraged the previous statewide facilities bond with our local property GEO bond, property tax GEO bond, and we're able to get much more of the work done that we needed to happen for students at the school sites with the combination of the two. There's, as many folks are aware here, there's lots of new regulations and requirements for facilities for transitional kindergarten that the district provide. And there's really the time and the urgency to create some resiliency using solar power at each of the schools. So there's the why. Oh, let's see. Just a little bit, and Marcus is going to help me towards the end of the slide here, but a little bit of the work that's taken place to date. As context, we've engaged with HY Architects on the master project list. We've been working with the architects that were assigned to each different school site and making sure we're up to date through this process with all of the information and learnings from the projects that happened out there through this bond work. We've been meeting informally with school site administration and confirming our project lists. We've developed the district-wide solar master plan, which outlines where solar shade canopies should go throughout the district. We've been reviewed the sites for the projects that were listed in the previous master plan, but were not, for many reasons, able to be on the final list. And we've been meeting closely with our maintenance and operations team to make sure we understand any deferred maintenance projects that might be beyond the scope and budget of their work. So with that, I'm hoping Marcus can help share a little bit on master planning potentially to come.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me here. And it's great to see a lot of you. A lot of you have been through this with, well, I've been through this with a lot of you from the early stages of the last master facility plan all the way through the bond program. So it's great to be back to talk about this next round. As Dan mentioned, obviously we've developed, we worked hard on a preliminary list. I mean, one of the advantages that we have now that we didn't have, we developed the first master facility plan. That first one was completely from scratch. It was all, we had to start our assessments from scratch. We had our meetings from scratch. We had a huge process that we went through in order to develop that last master facility plan. And then we had to dial it back based on the amount of funding that was available. And that was a process in itself. So the advantage that we have now is that we've done that work already. At least we did it work back in 2014. Needs have changed, but a lot of work has been done and the priorities have changed. So the anticipated process for taking what's right now a draft project list and turning that into an actual master facilities plan is really some more robust engagement. Our intent is to go to the individual campuses yet again, do something a little bit similar we did the last time, which is to sit down with a site committee, have a site committee engage at each site, comprised of a variety of different types of stakeholders. We have parents, we have teachers, we have principals. At the high school, we had students. It was really a fun experience, and we intend to do that again. Take this project list that we've already started based on what we know is already is left undone. What we anticipate are the current priorities, and to really hear from them where, how they react to the list, what things that we didn't think of as we were developing it, how we modify it based on individual site priorities, and then overlay the district's priorities on top of that, which is what Dan's going to talk about a little bit as he gets into what we've already looked at for each one of the individual sites. Once we've done that, we can turn what's right now just a project list into a master facilities plan that we can then start to execute, anticipating, of course, the approval, for the district to go for a bond and that it all gets approved. So that's a little bit about our process. I'm happy to answer questions, or Dan, if you want to just keep on rolling, that's entirely up to you guys.
Okay, I don't see any questions yet, so I'll keep on rolling. Okay, so just a summary slide of some of these district-wide target initiatives that we see as priority need throughout the district, starting in the elementary district. Climate resiliency. The board has heard several presentations by myself to date on these topics, but it includes solar, microgrids, power distribution infrastructure, improved heating, ventilation, and air conditioning upgrades, increased outdoor classrooms and courtyards and shade structures, high performance windows. I'm sure many of you didn't know that there was such a thing as a high performance window, but they're turbocharged and help all of our energy management efficiency, along with all weather artificial turf for all season use. Secondly, educational program enhancements, 21st century classrooms, targeted program specific renovations, and we mentioned earlier the need to expand for early childhood development, transitional kindergarten programs. And lastly, functional and operational improvements, fire security, alarm upgrades, safety upgrades, parking drop-off, again, in the safety category, and site work associated with security and communication and outdoor spaces. I'm going to go through our potential projects list fairly quickly, but just to give everyone an idea and a visual. Here's solar shade structure that we installed at San Pedro Elementary School using our Prop 39 funds, but to be able to do this through the whole district and the money it would save for our general fund, along with energy savings. San Pedro Elementary, here's some of the projects we've identified with the sites. The 21st century classroom upgrades, indoor outdoor learning, flex places to the multi-purpose room, including food services and adjacent outdoor classroom shaded areas. Glenwood Elementary, here's some pictures of the portables where the kindergarten classes are held, and being able to put a potential dollar amount around 21st century classrooms, program improvements, and operational improvements. Bahia Vista, and again, one of the questions that may come up, this is one of our more recent school sites. This was completed in 2004, 2005, but being able to, upgrade the classrooms, which will be close to 20 years old at that time, and get the all-weather turf and site work completed there. That's now necessary. Coleman, reconfiguring the drop-off in the kinder areas have been identified. Sun Valley, being able to create an indoor or outdoor learning center and flex spaces and site improvements with classrooms. Venetia Valley may be able to see the new classroom that we did there in the background, but we weren't able to get to any of the kinder wing and the middle school in this last bond. So there's work associated there. Some of the signature projects that we want to get to is the Center for Student Life for Davidson, a multi-use space, updating all the classrooms, the all-weather turf, and site-wide functional and operational improvements across the campus. And this would probably be the biggest focus of elementary district GeoBond is really trying to one of our largest middle schools in the county, and really trying to make sure we're able to support all the students and families there. Lastly, on this list here is Old Galenas and the potential of expanding that into a child development center and making sure it has the upgrades that it needs in terms of HVAC, windows, and fire alarm and security systems. Transitioning to the high school district, some of the projects and target initiatives that have been identified are the athletic facilities, program enhancements, and improving district support facilities such as maintenance operations and transportation and warehouse. So for San Rafael High School, being able to create a parity between the two high schools with an improved signature visual and performing arts center, which entails upgrading the Hayes and Bulldog black box theaters and creating a arts building plaza there at the campus, upgrading and building a new competition aquatic center in the same footprint where the pool is currently located, and being able to upgrade the fields to all-weather turf. Terra Linda High School, similar competition aquatic center in the same footprint. All-weather turf fields, student activity centers for physical education and core facility upgrades, maintenance and operations, being able to, you can see some of the condition there of the buildings, being able to upgrade the warehouse and bring it up to standards. So, I'll stop there for a moment and ask if there's just, before transitioning to Greg, if there's any questions for myself or Marcus about our process to date.
Okay, well, while we're looking for questions from the board, invite anybody who has a comment, public comment, to raise their hand, and we'll call on you. Any questions or comments from the board on this? There's a lot to take in, I know. Trustee Daly.
Yeah, thanks and I think it's great that you're kind of taking it in chunks, because it is a lot. It's a lot of information. So thank you for doing that. It's a long list as well. One of the things that you highlighted, Dan, in the beginning of the presentation was the TK facilities needs. And I did see that on a few slides, but can you talk a little bit more about, so for those that are, remembering, this was an earlier discussion about the state, Governor Newsom signed a bill that required the expansion of TK to be phased in over, I think it's a 5-year period. And so can you talk a little bit about how we're anticipating, how many more kids we're expecting, and the difference in facilities that is needed to accommodate this new state law?
Yeah, well, I'll also invite our Assistant Superintendent, Bob Marcucci, to join me in an explanation for anticipation, but I'll ask the board and the community, we had a demographic, in-depth demographic study completed recently here that outlined some of the projections they're seeing and some of the different ideas that they're trying to work through in terms of what is the impact for transitional kindergarten going to be on San Rafael City Schools. And I know Bob's office has been dialing in the numbers on that, and there's a lot of to be worked out in the rules and the regulations on what that's going to mean for San Rafael specifically. But we are expecting a significant impact, and that was outlined in that demographic report. And Bob, do you care to mention anything about specifics on your counts?
Sure. We're in the middle of really doing some projections and thinking about, based on both on the study that Dr. Zeitz is talking about, but also just our own internal projections. And so even just next year, we're looking at almost doubling the number of TK students we have currently. And, moving into, even as far out as 26, 27, essentially having an entire grade level of close to 400 students joining our schools, our elementary schools. And so just really thinking about how do you add a grade level, and then a grade level that has some specific needs related to restrooms and size of classroom and play structures, and wanting to make sure that we're doing everything we can, partnering with Dr. Zeitz related to creating the best environment for those students, because that's how we get those students into our district, and then hopefully keep them for the entire time that they're with us. So
I would emphasize that part of these regulations, Bob hit the nail on the head. It requires specific bathroom regulations for students and playground regulations for students, which will mean quite a facilities need for the district to be able to support.
Are those similar to the kindergarten regs?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I remember from the last time around concerns about TK classes and how there just isn't room in our classroom on our school campuses. And we've done this every time. There just isn't room for things. And then, we do create a K-8 school at VV. We do reopen Laurel Dell. We did use short school. And so we can do it. And I'm really excited to see us have those conversations and talk about it. And certainly at the national level, there's discussion, follow up on what Gina's talking about pre-K. And so we may want to think about changing that language. I know the smarter people than we are will know what's the best way to put the question, but we may want to be asking about pre-K for our San Rafael students. From an equity perspective, it's certainly the best thing we could do, especially if the funding is coming through.
Yeah, those are important points. Thank you.
Any other trustee, Gina, do you have another question or another item here, or the other trustees?
One last question while the other trustees are thinking of their questions. So on the solar master plan, I recall from an earlier board meeting that we're moving forward with trying to get bids for that plan. So can you explain kind of how that fits into, and there's reasons for that, mostly around the pricing of solar energy and trying to lock in a higher price. But can you explain how that fits into the climate change and resiliency goals, and what the timing of that is compared to the bond, and how those fit together?
Yeah, that's a great question, Trustee Daly. So, I think part of what we have to do in our work on putting an RFP out on the street for our solar master plan is the timing around you know, in the pricing still has to be evaluated on what sorts of bids are the district receives. But the concept may be to buy out the power purchase agreement with the bond funds so that we can maximize the use of the solar for the general fund for the district. So that's kind of the rough conceptual idea of what may potentially happen. So it'd be a great way for us to create the microgrids at the campuses where if there was an emergency, members from the community could come and have a refuge island where there's a place to, we have some refrigeration available, food, necessary for food storage, and you could charge your cell phone and so on, and stay warm. So that's kind of the idea there.
Another part of that is to stay cool.
Or stay cool, yes, exactly.
You know, I just have a couple questions I'll ask. One is, and you've heard me before on this, on the safety. So you talked about safety and fencing. So having seen what's happened to public schools in Texas and Oklahoma, and now in Oklahoma where my daughter lives, you can't even go in the schools anymore. They don't worry about masks and they don't worry about vaccines, but they're certainly not going to let parents go into the schools anymore. And so I hope that when we frame that we're very careful in how we frame safety, that we want our campuses to be welcoming places. The day that the private schools in Marin County put fences up and keep people out, then we can start thinking about it. But we need to be open, welcoming places for all of our students. And I hope that you can work on the messaging and framing of that, because safety means one thing and it can be a really dangerous path for us to go down with people who make money from making schools little boxes to keep people in and out. So that's just a comment for you on that. The other one is, let's see. Another comment on the climate plan. I think at the very beginning you said to do a climate plan. It's really work that we've been working on for, I think before I got on the board. So we may also want to, just like we did with the dual immersion language program, Lucia, where it's not a brand new program. We are continuing and refining and completing our mission to have sustainable schools in our city, and ones that are going to meet the climate challenges that we're facing for not just our children, but for the larger community as well. So again, the messaging is something that is vetted far beyond what we offer here tonight, but I just wanted to submit that it's not something we've just discovered. And then the final comment I have is parity between the high schools. So in times past, there have been, we as a board, as a school district, we've been criticized for not paying attention to parity. So I didn't, it's premature to do that yet, but I want to be sure that both high schools have the chance to do what they need to have to make their campuses the best they can be. And that they have an equal chance at that, an equal shot. So I'll throw that out. Any other comments or questions from trustees before we get into the financial advising?
I do have some comments.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I didn't see on this report anything having to do with cameras. And that is something that when we talk about safety, especially with situations that had happened in the past, and we're talking about spending so many millions on updating the schools, I would like to know why the camera systems is not included. My other comment is that the reason why we need the 2022 bond, it says that we need to new transitional kindergarten TK. But on this report, and this is because I want to learn more about it, we only refer to it to the old Galinas in short. So the question about that is, when we're talking about transitional kindergarten, is it gonna be just established at the old Galinas and Shore, or is this something that all the schools will have, at least the elementary schools? I mean, the elementaries actually. I just wanna be clear on the information that I am about to process, because everything is related to money.
Yes. Oh, those are great questions, Trustee Palma. I'll start with your first question about security. We're referencing in our project list right now, and this is just a general list. We're referencing systems as infrastructure. So that could be the fire alarms, the smoke alarms, the security alarms. All of those go together just in terms of coming up with a line item for funding at this time. And it's just, we've just basically gone school site by school site and identified who has the need for upgraded systems right now. So that's just a base level that we've worked to identify for this presentation. And then, so hopefully when I say systems, what I'm referencing, I'm including security and the different levels of that under that topic. So it's generalized. And then to your second question, which is really a fantastic question, and I by no means have the answer for that this evening, which I think your question is, would transitional kindergarten be at specific sites, or would it be possible to create, use old Galinas or Short campuses as potentially child development centers? And that's really, I think, the work of our leadership team in the district and the community. And but we currently are specifying old Galinas because it needs the work right now, and we have community action Marin there currently, and we're using a lot of the campus for early childhood needs at this time. So it is in dire need, I assure you, of a facilities facelift. So.
Okay, are you looking, let's see, this first part was informational background. So now let's move on to the need and consideration for a bond measure in 22.
Thank you. Okay, with that, Greg is here, and hopefully you can take away this next section for us, Greg.
You got it, Dan. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so this general obligation bond definition that Dan put in says GEO bonds are a fundraising mechanism where local school districts can issue school construction bonds and levy property taxes to pay for them when approved by voters in the district. So what I'm going to go through on the next couple of pages, Dan, if you could go to the next page for me, or the next one after that, is how bonds kind of financially work. The history of the district in regards to its bonds, and what tax rates and money, kind of what it all means. Okay. So I know there's a lot of numbers, and I'll try to explain this as easy as I can. So on the left-hand side of this page here, you'll see in the red, it says San Rafael ESD historical assessed value. So how school bonds work, as I said, it's based off of a couple of things, but the two biggest components are the total value, which you can see right in the middle there. And if you scroll down to the bottom, right next to 2022, it says 13.438 billion. Okay, that is the total value of all taxable property within the elementary school district boundaries. So that's residential, that's commercial, that's industrial, that's anything that has a value to it. Okay. On the right-hand side in that box is the history of the district in regards to when it passed its bond measures, for how much and at what support the voters supported it at. Okay, so you can see in 1999, passed a $26 million bond at 72%. In 2002, a $49 million bond at 68%. And in 2015, $108 million bond at 67%. So all these bonds achieved over 2/3 voter support. And of note, when it comes to passing school bonds, you only need 55% of the voters to approve a bond measure. Okay. Second bullet point, you can see it says district has no remaining authorization from previous elections, meaning that the district has sold all of its bonds. There's no more bond money to sell. The combined tax rate. So this is what voters in the elementary school district are paying for all of the school bonds from 1999, 2002, and 2015. They're currently paying $69.50 per $100,000 of assessed valuation. And the key word, what I should have done was put in bold, assessed value. So some people recall how bonds work. It's not based off of what the current market value is of your home. It's what does the county say it's assessed at, right? So if you are a property owner and your property tax bill, you lived in your home for 50 years, maybe your home is only assessed at $100,000, right? So that means that for all those bonds, you're currently paying $69. If your home is assessed at $1 million, that means that you're paying $690.50, right? Or $695. So as I said, there's the tax rate component, there's the total value component, and there's the percentage of change, which is important because when you're putting together a bond program for the future, you need to make estimations on what you think the tax base is going to grow. Okay. And historically, going back for the last 18 years, you can see the tax base has averaged as a percent of change 4.3%. Okay. You have an extremely strong tax base. And that, you didn't drop 20% or 18% during the recession. You had very, very minimal negative growth of the most of 1.28%. Okay. That second bullet point at the bottom of the page, there's a term called bonding capacity. This is important just because people always say, well, what's my bonding capacity? Well, bonding capacity is just the number that the state gives you, which you take your total value of $13.4 billion, multiply it by 1.25%, subtract out your outstanding debt, which gives you your current debt limit of $43.8 million. Okay, that number is going to grow every single year because your tax base will grow and you pay off outstanding debt. So once again, that's always just a moving number. That's just good information to have for at this exact moment. What's your current debt? Okay. Do you want me to answer any questions, Dan, or do you want me to go to the next page? There's a lot of numbers.
Good, keep rolling, Greg.
Are there any questions for elementary? High school, you might want to hear the high school and then we'll see if there's any questions.
Perfect. Sounds like a plan. Okay, so when someone says, well, how much can I get a bond for the elementary school district? Okay, you can see in this box here, you'll see a lot of numbers. You'll see on the left-hand side of the column, there's a $19, a $25, and a $30 number. Okay, that is options for the school district. When I say options, meaning if the district decided to do a $30 tax rate, which is the most that it can ask its voters to approve, and if you scroll all the way to the right-hand side of the $30, you'll see $152.5 million. That is how much you could ask your voters to approve at a $30 tax rate with assessed valuation growth of 4% with 30-year bond terms. Okay, this is a very conservative model that we've set up. I gave you a $25 tax rate because nobody knows. This is part of the presentation coming after with Charles Heath is what are your voters willing to support? So if I use a $25 tax rate, just to give you an idea, that generates $127 million spread out over, you can see it'll take about 7 years to access all that money. And a $19 tax rate generates $96.6 million. Okay. Similar to all your other bond measures that were approved, you can see where it says Series A 2022, Series B 2024, Series C 2027, Series D 2029. That represents a bond sale. And this is kind of similar how we structured the 2015 bond sale to be spread out over time, which allows the district to access more bond funds when it sells. The last bullet point on this page shows if you're to pay off the 1999 bonds with 2022 bonds. So right now for the elementary district, there's about $15.8 million remaining. And if you wanted to pay it off, it would be left with $136.7 million for other projects. And once again, this is just financial. You can legally pay these bonds off. Whether you want to do it or not, that's up to you guys and up to probably what Charles Heath is going to discuss at a later time. So that's the elementary school district. If I just go to the high school district, I don't need to explain what everything means again. I'll just hit the highlights. So your tax base here is 19.587 billion, which is the highest it's ever been in the history of the district. On the right-hand side in the box, there's the history of the high school district's bond measure. So this is, what includes Miller Creek. 1999 bond passed at 73%, 13 million. 2002 bond, 67%, 49.5 million. 2015 bond, 160 million, 68%. So all over 2/3 voter support. Combined tax rate for the high school district is $58.30. And so if you happen to live in both the elementary and the high school district, you are paying a total of $127.80 per 100,000 of assessed valuation. Okay. If you go to the next page, Dan, this is the bond amounts, giving you different options, following the same kind of model as the elementary school district of a $19, $25, and $30 tax rate. You can see the maximum $30 tax rate generates $216 million, $25 tax rate, $180 million, $19 tax rate, $136.8 million. If you were to, someone asked the question at one point, well, what if you're to go for the $30 tax rate for both the high school and the elementary? Well, that would generate, that's an additional $60. So the total combined tax rate would go from 127 to 187 and 80 cents. Okay. That last bullet point, the payoff of the 1999 bonds for the high school, it's a little bit less of 4.3 million, which would allow you, if you use the maximum tax rate of $30, $211.7 million for projects at the high school district. So I believe that is my presentation with lots of numbers, and I'm open to any questions.
Turn it over. This is complicated stuff, and I know Dan is available afterwards too to talk with anybody and with you, Greg. But at this point, are there any questions for clarification or understanding from trustees? Trustee Daly.
You had, so Greg, thanks for that. It was a lot of numbers. I think none of us, save for probably Natu, are able to read spreadsheets like that, but thank you for trying to bring it to our level.
I went for it.
My question is, and you and I have talked about this before, but I think one of the key things for our potential voters is going to be, what is the potential change from what they are paying right now to what we're looking at? And so if you could just spend a minute kind of talking about that, and at the various levels for the elementary school, and let's just choose the middle number, just so we have an idea. So if you're living in let's say Peacock Gap, which is the elementary school district and high school district together, versus you live in my neighborhood, which is Terra Linda, I'm only in the high school district, what would those tax bills look like?
So if you are in that first community that you mentioned, right now you're paying $127.80. If you were to do the middle option, let's just say that's $25 and $25, just so $50. Okay, if you're in that first community mentioned, you'd be paying at the end of the day $177.8 per 100,000. If you were in,
sorry, and Greg, can I interrupt you? So that's 177, and how much money do we get at that level to be used for the new facilities? If we're at the $5.
Dan, scroll back 3 pages to the elementary bond. 127 million.
Thank you. And then for the high school district at that same $25 level?
High school district, $25 tax rate, 180 million. And for for you, if you live in that district, that would take your tax rate, let's say 58, 70, $73 per 100,000 for the high school. But then you would have your own Miller Creek bond tax rate as well, which is, let's just call it $50. So you would be paying, 127.
But I think the important thing is, so let's say it is the middle option. So essentially, if you live in the elementary school district, for, again, but just as an example, to add $50 to your bill per 100,000, you're getting a huge amount of money to be able to do these projects. So
correct.
It's just, I just want to kind of lay it out succinctly that way, because on the bond financing is complicated. So I always think it's easier to, for the individual family getting that bill in the mail, what are they looking at? And then what are the types of things we're going to be able to do in terms of facilities with that money, with that small increase. So hopefully that helped conceptualize this to everyone else who's listening in.
Definitely.
Anybody else? Dan, why don't you propose, is the next step describing what you propose to do with this information?
The next step is to have Charles Heath come up and talk a little bit about, what our planning might look like.
Got it. And he's in the room.
Thank you, Dan. Good to see you all this evening. A lot of information shared tonight about the facility needs, how the facility needs might be financed. My piece is to talk a little bit about if we were to pursue a general obligation bond to fund those needs, what that process might look like. And knowing that the district recently went through the renewal of the parcel tax measure, I'll sort of draw upon that as a comparison to how we might approach the bond measure. One key difference between parcel taxes, we were able to put the renewal measure on the May special election ballot. For bond measures, we can only place these measures on regularly scheduled elections, the primary and general elections in even numbered years. But the advantage we have is we don't have to pass these bonds at 2/3. We can pass them at 55% threshold. So that means that the next two upcoming opportunities to place bonds on the ballot would be the June 2022 primary and the November 2022 gubernatorial general election that's coming up. So typically the way we approach evaluating what is the optimal election date, but also how do we determine an appropriate bond amount and tax rate and the other details of the measure, is to start with a feasibility study. And this is the same step we started with as we were evaluating the potential parcel tax renewal measure last year. And this is where we do some public opinion research, some polling in the community to ask your voters what they might be willing to support. We test various tax rates, we test various bond amounts, we test potential project priorities to give a sense where people would want to see the money spent. We also kind of evaluate the overall climate in the community. Do people perceive that there's a need for additional facility improvements in your local schools, and those kind of questions that help us understand kind of the environment we're operating in and the level of awareness that exists out in the community. We're recommending that we move quite quickly to start that feasibility assessment, because if we were to take advantage of the June 22 primary, we're facing a deadline at the beginning of March in order to have those key questions in terms of the bond amount and tax rate and project list determined. So we really need to get that feasibility assessment completed here before the end of the calendar year, so we can bring some recommendations back to the board in order to keep that June election opportunity on the table. Assuming we come out of that feasibility assessment with a green light, we feel like we have a path to a viable election. We know what a winnable bond proposal looks like. We then move into the consensus building process. This is where we reach out to educate and inform key audiences in the community about what your facility needs are and what your plans are to address those facility needs. That typically starts with your internal audiences, parents, teachers, classified staff, students, to make sure that they understand what these needs are and make sure we're engaging with them and gathering their input and their priorities, but then also expanding out to the broader external community, the vast majority of voters out there that don't have children in your schools. And at the end of the day, their votes are critical to reach that 55% passage threshold and be successful. So not only the populations you serve, but other community members need to be aware of what your facility needs are and what your plans are to address those needs. Following that outreach step, we then take what we've learned via the outreach, via the opinion research that we've done in order to build the actual bond proposals that will go before voters. Those include both the ballot question, the abbreviated summary that people read on their ballots that include the bond amount, the tax rate, and a brief summary of the projects that would be funded, but also the more detailed materials that appear in the ballot pamphlet. And that for a bond measure, that includes a full project list that defines the various projects that are eligible for bond expenditures going forward. So obviously you want to write those documents in a way that are closely aligned with voters' priorities and sensitivities. So the next step in the process is to bring those documents to the board, the resolutions that would officially call for a bond election. As I mentioned, if we want to be on the June ballot, that action to approve the bond resolutions would need to occur, let's call it the first week in March is the deadline. It's 88 days prior to election day. If we were looking at the November general election, the deadline would be the first week in August. So those are sort of two key dates to keep in mind through this planning process, depending on which election we want to target. Once the board has voted to place the measure on the ballot, we then move into the advocacy phase of the process. And all of the steps I've described up to this point, the district can lead those processes. The district can fund the informational communication and the opinion research to plan and prepare your bond proposal for the ballot. But once the measure's on the ballot, any advocacy in favor of the measures has to be privately funded, coordinated by volunteers, not using any district resources or staff time. Similar to what we went through with the parcel tax recently, where a committee came together, raised private dollars, recruited volunteers in order to mount that advocacy effort for a successful outcome. So analogous between the parcel tax and the bond, although some sort of nuanced detail differences and also different timelines given the requirement that we be on a regularly scheduled ballot. So that's an overview. The first step here is to jump into that feasibility assessment, do some polling, understand, kind of the options that Greg laid out for us, what your voters would support, and bring some recommendations back to you and make some decisions for how we move forward. So with that, happy to answer any questions you have.
You're on. Linda, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you, Netu. Can you put that last? Well, no, it's okay. We're on gallery view here. So, are there any questions from board members right now? So, yes, Trustee Lucia.
Thank you, President Jackson. I just wanted to make just a quick comment about all this information and how important it is for parents. Going back to Gina's question, to Trustee Daly's question about simplification of the message. I just think that this is a lot of information, and obviously you have to do it because we are the board, but I just want to, point out that this is such an important project, and I see a sense of urgency because of all the wonderful things that Dan brought to our attention that definitely need our support and our enthusiasm to move forward. And I think in order for us to sell this project and to move forward, which I think is so needed, is definitely to continue bringing it home to parents and say, these are the things that, of course, are as board members, as a part of the community, we get it, but your dollars are going to be stretched out, to the maximum, because this is what the students need, and your tax bill is going to be affected this much, right? So I think this is obviously what you're all doing, but I just wanted to highlight as somebody, a parent who's also in the community, talking to other folks, right? How important it is to make sure we bring this down to the people that are ultimately going to be voting for this, and not just the parents, obviously, but people of the community at large who vote for this measure. So I think this is a great job. I love all the information you brought, and when we met with Dan, Marina and I told you that we were really looking forward to this project, and you have you have my my full support and enthusiasm behind this. So thank you for bringing all of this. I just want to make sure we simplify it for everyone outside this, and thank you for everyone who came to the meeting too.
Another trustee? Yes, Trustee Palmer.
Yes, as Lucia, Trustee Lucia was saying, I do echo the meaning of having all these buildings renovated, the idea of proposing to try to see if there is support to pass this bond. We definitely need everything that was presented tonight, and we need to come up with a shorter version of explanation to parents that we sometimes don't understand the details. But if you give us like the big picture and the levels of the money, money related and the end of it, I think it'll be easier to understand, because we'll do anything for our children, right? So I definitely agree to move on with this.
Somebody else? Gina?
I think this presentation is great, and I think it is something we should move forward on. I have to recuse myself from voting on this due to a remote conflict of interest, so I will reserve my comments, but appreciate the presentation and appreciate the opportunity.
Vice President Tagovailoa.
Thank you, President Linda. First, I want to thank Marcus Hibster, Greg Isom, and Charles Heath for being on tonight to help with the presentation. And a huge thanks to Dan and his team at this point in time. It's not without saying that having a great team of people who run a bond program makes all the difference. And for our community, we've been super lucky. We had someone in-house who was willing to take on the challenge. That was Dan. He did a great job. We had great program management with Van Pelt and Bill Savage. We had great construction managers and architects that we hired along the way, great subcontractors to put together these incredible projects. So the track record of using the community's money and developing the projects through an incredibly inclusive and vocal process with our sites and our parents to get what we have today has just been an incredible example of how this public school system has taken those public dollars and used them to the best of our ability, and to really maintain the commitment of doing the things we said we were going to do. And as Marcus had said, we did this way back when in 2014, when we sat in a room with all the stakeholders and thought about, how many classrooms did we have? Well, at that time we had one classroom left in the whole district, and that one was going to be taken up in the next year with more students. So, since I've been on the board, we've had almost a 22,000 to 2,500 pupil increase, which is an incredible thing to grow with that. And one of the things I want to highlight too, it's not just the team, but it's the history of our district. If you remember, if you grew up here like I did in the 70s, one day you had all these great programs, and then all of a sudden you didn't have them. And that was because of Prop 13. And so Prop 13 at the time was tough. It hurts kids and it hurt programs, but it gave taxpayers who were homeowners a break on their property taxes. And since that time, property owners have realized an incredible appreciation in their properties. They've been able to refinance their homes and send their kids to college. They've been able to sell their homes to retire. They've really done a lot. At the same time, they've supported us not once, not twice, but 3 times to help build our schools and maintain modernized schools and upgrade our schools. And it's how the state of California decided to run its financial program that these local schools have to be maintained by our local community. So again, it's a huge thanks to our community who believes in our schools, our public schools, and also understands that safe, modernized, upgraded public schools maintain property values in our town. It's a huge thing for people. And I think that's part of the reason why we get a lot of support and we get a lot of enthusiasm, because parents, new parents, and parents that are here, and even parents that are alumni of the district, they see all the great work that's gone on over the last 20 years. And now we're looking at moving this into our another 10 years, a 30-year plan to revitalize all of our sites, to complete our projects, to really set up, systems of sustainable success for all our students, which now includes transitional kindergartens, maybe pre-K. So a lot of that forward thinking has put us in a great position. So I think we have a great team. I think we have a great enthusiasm to do what's right for our kids of our community, our kids and families. And for me, I'm just so excited to see what's going to happen over the next 10 years. I know that the projects that we've done so far have been fantastic, and I know that we have the team to continue that work. So it's with great enthusiasm, I make the motion to approve moving forward.
We have a motion on the, okay, we have a motion and a second. So I want to remember that when we put together the package for the 2015 bond measure, we knew at that time it was not enough for everything that was on the list that principals wanted, that parents wanted for their schools. And we had to make some pivots with that bond money for climate change. We put AC in our schools so that our students and our teachers could teach and learn in classrooms that were baking, and we have seen that as we've gone through with rising costs along the way, that our program had to be modified and to be cut. And so it's exciting to me to see this come around and to see the numbers show that we can indeed make all those improvements and more that we need for 2022 on. The next thing will be to get those poll results. So we have a motion on the floor. We have a second, and I will take a roll call now. Well, first I'm going to take a look and see if we have any public comment. Any hands raised for public comment from the participants?
Seeing none.
Okay, thank you so much. Trustee Palmer.
Aye.
Trustee Martell Dow.
Aye.
Trustee Daly.
I recuse myself due to a remote conflict of interest.
Vice President Tuatagaloa.
Aye.
I'm an aye. That matters passes 4-0 with one abstention. So go forth and bring back some. We look forward to hearing from you at the end of the year, beginning of next year. Thank you so much. You're the A team, and we're so glad you're with us. Okay.
Thank you.
Next on this evening, folks, is the consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull?
I'd like to pull number 2, number 6, and number 12.
6 and 12. Anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion for the
I'll move
balance?
the balance.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the balance of the consent agenda. Trustee Palmer?
Aye.
Trustee Martell Dow?
Aye.
Trustee Daly?
Aye.
Trustee Tuatagaloa?
Aye.
I'm an aye. That matters. That passes unanimously. Now item number 2.
Item number 2 is for the Parcel Tax Citizens Oversight Committee. And I just want to make a comment to thank all the folks that are on that committee to start off with. Really appreciate the leadership from Alicia Klein. And I think we have someone that's coming off of that committee, Jen Hatch, a parent at Centerville High School, has done a great job. So I wanted to recognize her for all of her work. And hopefully we get the word out to more people. I'm not sure, I think Lisa Solomon is also coming off that committee too at some point. But these are all great people that are on here. Some of them I know personally, so I want to just thank them for their time and effort in reviewing the materials and holding us accountable to be spending that parcel tax money where it needs to be spent. And with that, I will move for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. I want to second that now too. You're absolutely right. I went to the last meeting and the depth of the questions and the comments that they made me just feel like, oh, we've got eyes on this project. Trustee Daly was there with me. So Trustee Palma.
Aye.
Trustee Martel Dow.
Aye.
Trustee Daly.
Aye.
Vice President Tuatagaloa.
Aye.
Aye, 2 as well. So 5-0, that passes. Item number 6.
Yes, item number 6, I need to recuse myself due to a remote conflict of interest. So I'll leave that to the balance of the board to handle.
I move that we approve item 12.6.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve 12.6. Trustee Palma.
Aye.
Trustee Martel Dow.
Aye.
Trustee Daly.
Aye.
Vice President Tuatagaloa is recusing himself, and I am an aye as well. That matter passes 4-0 with 1 recusal. And the last item is number 12.
Yes, number 12 is the contract with Ryland School of Business Consulting for help with our payroll situation. So first, I'd like to just say thanks to Bob for his leadership in trying to rectify this situation, and now really working hard to get some very smart people to come in and help us get this taken care of and move us forward. We have worked with Terry Ryland in the past. She was part of the transition team between Chris Thomas and Doug Marquand. She did a fantastic job for us, highly recommended. I trust her and her judgment, and I know that they'll do the best they can to work with us and Bob to make sure we get what we need. In terms of the agreement, I don't think it has a not to exceed amount. So if Bob, if you could, I know that you have been asked this question, maybe you could talk to that just a minute so that we could get get a feeling for that, and then we can move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Trustee Tuatagaloa, to the opportunity to provide some parameters around this particular item. The contract is for 12 months, so it is a year-long contract, or it could go to that length. I don't foresee us going past about 6 months. And then in terms of the not to exceed amount, a conservative estimate, I think I'd like to say not to exceed $20,000 of consultancy.
Thank you, Bob. Really appreciate that. So yeah, I'd like to make the motion to approve the agreement with noting Bob's recommendation of a $20,000 not to exceed amount.
I'll second that.
Okay. Been moved and seconded to approve the Ryland contract, adding a note that there's a not to exceed amount for $20,000. Trustee Palma.
Aye.
Trustee Martel Dow.
Aye.
Trustee Daly.
Aye.
Vice President Tuatagaloa.
Aye.
I am aye, so that passes 5-0. Thank you so much for bringing that forward to us, Bob. We know it's an important topic for everyone who receives a paycheck. So that concludes our evening. Our next meeting is November 15th. We will see you all then. Have a good week. Stay dry. This meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.